How rude.
I mean, that's not really. It's just the way he sounds. He's actually a lovely man.
Who, me or Kev?
Yeah, both of you. Both of you.
There we go. Look, I read all the reviews. Some are good, some are bad.
You shouldn't read your reviews, you should weigh them. That's all.
I don't think my maths is good enough. Anyway, listen, it's been so good tonight that I'm going to come back again tomorrow night.
Excellent, man. No, Kev's not back tomorrow.
No, he's not. So I'm going to be back tomorrow. So Ash is next with Andre Walker, and I'm going to be back tomorrow night from 7 o'clock for your evening show here on Talk. So please join me. Meanwhile, Ash is next.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
The Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, Kemi Badenoch and Elon Musk have called for inquiries into what took place in Oldham, the grooming gangs. Shh! Don't mention the religion or ethnicity of the people who are involved. What a ludicrous situation. I just want to say to you that there are two ways of increasing the total number of victims in any crime. One axis is the number of offenders, and the other axis is how long they're allowed to get away with it. I don't know whether there's something inherent within Islam. I don't know if there's something inherent within the Pakistani Muslim community in that area, but what I do know is that they were given effective immunity from prosecution. Therefore, there may not have been any more offenders than in any other community, but they certainly were given the time to do it. Week after week, month after month, year after year, the police, social services, local councils and politicians all conspired to make child grooming and child sex effectively legal for members of the Pakistani Muslim community. Now, it has to be said, more important than anything else, it's an obvious comment really, the vast majority of people who are Muslim, the vast majority of people who are Pakistani descent did not wish to acquire this right to never be prosecuted and did not take the police and the social services and the council up on their offer to commit as many child sex offences as they wanted with immunity from prosecution. But unfortunately some did, and the result of the amount of time they're allowed to get away with it was hundreds and thousands of victims. Now, Kemi Badenoch has called for a public inquiry. Elon Musk has called for a public inquiry. Jess Phillips has said it is for Oldham Council to investigate themselves. Well, they're the people that gave immunity from prosecution. I would argue that the police, social services and local councils are more responsible for this than the individual perpetrators. And I'll tell you why. Because there will always be people who attempt to commit crime. It's when you give them immunity from prosecution that things start to run out of control. And by God, did it run out of control. Let's hear what Jess Phillips was saying about all this last year.
Actual reality of what is happening in government currently is a sticking plaster announceable thing like the Grooming task force. We're a year on from the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. Years and years worth of evidence. And a year on, not a single one of the recommendations. The government have said they'll take some of them. There's no timeline for when any of those recommendations are going to happen, and that's both about prevention and supporting of victims who have been victims of sexual violence in childhood.
She could bring in the recommendations now, so what's she waiting for?
Oh, she absolutely will not do that. OK, I'll tell you what, Russell Quirk was speaking to Dame Andrea Jenkins. She's a former Conservative MP who's now Reform's 100,000th member. Take it away.
God, it's disgusting. I mean, especially, look, I've been in Parliament. I was in Parliament for her for 9 years, and all she'd talk about would be helping abuse domestic women when she worked for that charity. And it's just hypocrisy. Is it because it's not the right type of people she wants to prosecute? I'm sorry, but it's wrong.
Dame Andrew, sorry, do you mean the wrong colour?
Yeah, race. Absolutely. The wrong race, definitely. And that's wrong.
Well, we've got Phil Dave, the broadcaster, in the studio, but more importantly at this stage, but not throughout the entirety of the show, more importantly at this stage, we've got Simon Danchuk, who's the former Labour MP for Rochdale. Somebody wrote an article in the Daily Telegraph naming two Labour MPs now deceased who warned him that he must not mention the ethnicity, race or religion of the perpetrators of the Rochdale grooming gangs. I mean, Simon, look, the reality is you've been smashing your head against a brick wall about this for years, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. I was the bit of context. I was the MP for Rochdale 2010 to 2017. The Rochdale grooming scandal blew up in 2012. It was the first I'd heard of it.
In Rochdale,
Rochdale, yeah, absolutely. And then from there on in, I campaigned intensely for 3 years in every aspect, raising questions, raising issues on the floor of the House and everything else. What surprised me, first and foremost, is that Jim Dobbin MP, Labour MP, very senior MP in terms of his longevity in
Knighted
Parliament.
by the Pope?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, big Catholic. He was in the neighbouring constituency, and what he said to me, and I think he was trying to give me some sort of fatherly advice. He'd been an MP for a long time. I'd only been there 2 years. And he said, listen, Simon, just, you know, we were at some event. He said, don't mention the ethnicity. It could cost us votes. You know, just play it straight, so to speak. If that wasn't shocking enough, when the story breaks, Tony Lloyd, who's the chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party, so a very senior figure, was going to be the police commissioner for Greater Manchester. He was standing to be the police commissioner in an elected position. And he came up to me in Parliament and said, listen, Simon, I don't believe ethnicity is a factor in this. I don't think we should mention it. It could cost us votes. There's no doubt about him saying that. He also said he didn't think ethnicity was an issue in a parliamentary speech he made in 2012 and started going on about Jimmy Savile for some bizarre reason, as though what these grooming gangs did is comparable to that. I mean, it's two different instances. But yeah, so two examples of where I were warned off mentioning the ethnicity and religion.
And was their argument, which we hear from the political left a lot, there is a rape culture in Britain. All men are potential offenders, and it's got nothing to do with any background whatsoever.
Yeah, that would be the argument that they had, and that we should be celebrating multiculturalism. I didn't buy into that at all. I called it out, so I'm quite comfortable with my record on these issues. What I also found interesting, over those 3 years I met with the Home Secretary, Theresa May. She would phone me up at home to discuss these types of issues. I went to a summit with David Cameron, the Prime Minister, on child abuse and how we could come up with some solutions. And during all that time, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, never spoke to me once about it, which I found most peculiar. Why wouldn't she want to learn about what had gone on in Rochdale, the grooming scandal?
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, absolutely. She didn't want to hear what I would have to say and mention ethnicity. And religion and ethnicity clearly did play a part in it. There's no doubt about that.
And how did it play a part? Because I know my own view that you've got an enclosed Pakistani community that's relatively insular because they haven't integrated into the United Kingdom. The dress code, they go mad about some of the words that I use, but SLUT, that word was popular amongst these people, saying, well, if you dress like this, you're fair game. Was that the problem?
Yeah, that's all the kind of problem. They saw these. And Jack Straw said this a few years before all this blew up, because he was the MP for Blackburn, where I'd been a councillor in actual fact, and he said that some Pakistani men saw these girls as easy meat. They were his words, and they looked down on them because they were.
Well, if you're not part of their religion, it doesn't like. I mean, you know, it's a different thing. But the Yazidis, you can take. It's sort of in the thing that you can take them and do what you want. If
in India, they have a disparaging phrase, which is the love jihad.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that.
Well, no, but
I know in Germany, I had a girlfriend there, and she said she had there's problems with the Turkish, and now obviously they've got other problems. They had loads of groping, didn't they, from recently?
Yeah, but
that was a different thing.
So this is a particular ethnic group being racist towards white girls. You know what I mean?
Well, not just white girls. Apparently Sikh girls and Hindu girls, but their communities actually have educated their girls to not to look at the signs. We're not even educating young girls to look for the signs if some old bloke
they
says,
are being groomed.
Yeah,
unfortunately, this is a classic example of how multiculturalism has and always will fail, because it's not possible. There's a reason why cultural differences exist. You can't take someone who has got an entirely different cultural upbringing and say to them that, look, well, you know, this is a haven for multiculturalism in this country, so therefore you do whatever you want to. Oh, that doesn't fall in line with our culture. You can't do that. Well, the two don't marry up. It's not going to work, is it?
It doesn't really work, multiculturalism. You have to, if you come here, you have to be British and accept our values.
Well, I would say, where I think multiculturalism comes is people mistake multiculturalism for multi-faith. Multi-faith is very different, right? If someone wants to follow a different faith, knock yourself out, enjoy it, go for it. We live in a country where you are allowed to practice whatever faith
you can be
want.
multiracial. That works.
Unfortunately, when it comes to cultural issues, there are going to be divisions, and frankly, in this instance, quite rightly so.
The problem is, Simon, this is the elephant in the room. There is effectively a feeling that the Labour Party, rightly or wrongly, is afraid to offend the Muslim community. Therefore, they think the white girls are a price worth paying to avoid arguments.
Andre, I was in the Labour Party for decades.
Yes.
And I'm...
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there, just to say, so you are not just a former Labour MP, you're a former member of the North West Labour Executive Committee, former Labour councillor, so they might not like you for some of the things that you've said, but you have a bomb-proof background in the Labour Party.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly, and that's probably why I'm not a Labour member of Parliament now. I mean, this isn't a coincidence.
No.
And when I say
but
this...
also, you're quite a decent sort of chap, so to
well, that's another reason why they perhaps don't want me in there. But there's no doubt about it that they were concerned about losing votes over this issue. They saw multiculturalism a price worth paying for the abuse of these girls. Some Labour politicians, I would say.
How many of them are cowardly?
Oh, well, I mean, I wouldn't like to put a percentage on it.
But some of them are literally saying, I don't care, and others are saying, I'm too frightened to complain.
Yes, no, that's right. Well, if you take Jim Dobbin, the MP for Haywood and Middleton, he just wanted a quiet life. That's why he was saying it. He wanted to coast along, be an MP, get all the trappings that come with that, the foreign trips and everything else. It's a fair description of it.
Yes.
Not very good at doing the casework. You've met MPs who are like, it's a cross-party issue.
I met Jim Dobbin, and he's one of those people who really enjoyed the social side of being a member of Parliament. And there are people like that.
Yeah, that's a very polite way of putting it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I like to drink. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And take Tony Lloyd, he went on to be the police commissioner, and I called out the chief constable. I wrote a piece for the Mail on Sunday saying he should resign over this issue. He's not done a good job as the chief constable for Greater Manchester Police. But Tony Lloyd defended him. I mean, and he retired nicely a few years later, and everything's fine. But the truth is, and Maggie Oliver is one of a whistleblower.
Well, she should be brought back in the police. She was sacked, but she should be the chief constable. She should be heading the grooming gangs. Is Burnham now the head of the police?
Yes.
Well, he should put Maggie in the spot of grooming gangs in Greater Manchester Police. Well, she knows more than anyone about it.
Don't you think it's fascinating, though, Simon, that there's a couple of times that you were mentioning about how they sort of, don't mention the ethnicity or anything like that. It's not really worth losing votes over. What I find the most frustrating, and obviously there are many things that are frustrating about this particular case, so maybe not most frustrating, but one of the frustrating things is that you've got people who would typically mention ethnicity and culture and religion if it was going to win them votes, but as soon as they think it's going to lose them votes, stay quiet about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they right to do that? Because, on practicality levels, if Jess Phillips said she was very close with the Islamist running against her, some MP, prospective. So is she just... What should you do as an MP? Be a conviction politician and be kicked out, or...
I think you have to stick to your principles.
You need conviction politics.
But the reality is, we worry about, migrant Muslim communities voting en bloc. It's not an issue if you integrate people, right?
Yeah.
The only reason that people are voting as a tribe is because we've turned them into a tribe.
Well, also because the father of the house will take all the postal votes and fill them in himself. We've got to get rid of the postal vote system.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we also have to bear in mind that we have spent so many years dividing people into pigeonholes almost. Yeah. And then suddenly when that backfires, we're surprised by it. If you think about it on a wider level, and certainly on a more trivial level, look at sort of the way that all of these different recruitment drives work, where they start sort of saying, we need people from different ethnic backgrounds to fill various positions.
Yes,
and do various
as long
things.
as they're not white.
Well, quite, that's what I say, from different, some different backgrounds and what have you. But the point with that is that by doing that, further segregates society. Whereas if you actually say, and to some degree I agree with those politicians that told you don't mention the ethnicity, but not because of the reason they're worried about mentioning it, because I actually think that it should be a case across the board. Don't mention the ethnicity of anyone for anything. In other words, employ someone based on their ability of the job. Convict someone because they've
Let me just say this. The problem with that was that look, reality check here. Forget the ethnicity of the people. It was whatever thing the police had decided, you get immunity from prosecution. It doesn't matter if the police say you can never be arrested for shoplifting. If you're ginger, as an example, it doesn't matter what it was they decided to do. It's the fact they decided to do it.
No, totally, but that's what I'm saying. So
I understand your point.
If you take ethnicity out of the equation...
What about culture and ethnicity are different?
Yeah, that's true. And, that's a fair point. But what you have to do, if you want to come up with some solutions, is you have to acknowledge that their religion has played a part in the abuse.
Has it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. And it's
they wouldn't do it to Muslim girls, would they?
Yeah, not very much. There's instances.
It's probably
nothing,
bit, but
nothing like. Yeah, exactly. Nothing like.
But be that as it may, but my argument is fair enough. Okay, that it may well be something to do with cultural upbringing that has led someone to carry out some sort of revolting
act. Or religion as well.
Or religion. But the point is, if that's what they want to practice, shove them in prison for it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. In the first place, unless they are British. But what can you do if they're actually...
I don't care what their religion is. I care about the fact they're doing something that is breaking the law in this country.
You were talking about shoving them in prison. The other issue that I campaigned on during that period was having them deported, because many of them were dual nationality.
Now, Theresa May did some good stuff on that, didn't she?
Well, she did, but not enough. It was impossible to get them returned.
But they revoke their other nationality, don't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Before they get out of prison.
And the legal aid system pays these solicitors.
Oh, that's revolting.
An enormous amount of money.
Keir Starmer used to work and keep these people in. Well, terrible people.
You're absolutely right. So legally, officially, if you are a foreign criminal and you're dual national, you can have the British nationality taken off you and you can be returned to your country of origin. That's fine, except you will also spend 8 years suing the government on legal aid at enormous cost to the taxpayer.
Exactly.
And you will argue, and there's been a long debate about this, I even got a complaint to the regulator about this, but it is true to say that Theresa May did stand up at Conservative Party conference and cite the case, which was true, of a guy who was allowed to remain in the country, and one of the reasons he cited was his cat would be sad if he left the country. He'd run over a child.
We hear these stories every other week, don't we?
But there was one last week. He murdered his mother and sister, and he can't be deported because he feels anxious about being sent back there. What about the safety of our citizens?
Yeah. Well, that's why we need to come out to the European Convention on Human Rights. I think there's no doubt about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're taking your calls. In fact, loads of people have been in touch already. 0344 499 1000. Calls just charge at your normal rate. At Virtual Ash.
At Andre JP Walker.
Also, you can follow my YouTube channel simply because I'm illicitly promoting it on the station. That is www.youtube.com/Andre Walker. That's ANDRE. There's loads of good stuff. We're talking about Sadiq Khan's knighthood on that and indeed here straight after this.
UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. OK, let's get straight into Sir Sadiq Khan. Well, as we... Oh, sorry. OK. I'm going to have to ask to say hello to Heather in Gavan, and I'm going to have to fix this slightly.
By the way, give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. Give us a ring now. Let's get Heather. Andre's just putting his earpiece in because there's a bit of a problem, but I'll translate to Andre, but we'll talk to Heather.
Well, when I look at Richmond, Rotherham, Oldham, Bradford, all Labour constituency area, every single one of them failed in these grooming to prevent...
I don't think it's just Labour, though. The Tories have failed it as well.
Innocent girls' lives. I mean, when I look at Jess Phillips, she has got the bare-faced cheek to say that she protects little girls and women. She is a bona fide liar. And when I look at that Cooper turning a deaf ear only because they can't say it's Pakistani terrorist.
All right, well, let's take to Simon, because he was the MP up in Rochdale. What do you got to say?
Absolutely. No, well, I think Heather makes a fair point, and Jess Phillips not announcing a national inquiry, I think, is a big mistake. She refers to a national inquiry already taking place. That was actually looking at historical child abuse.
And it's not just about Oldham, it's a national problem.
Exactly, and that's why there should be a national inquiry.
If you work it out, it's millions of rapes over the 30 years and hundreds of thousands or tens. It works out at millions of rapes.
And also, don't you just think saying it out loud as well? It's just what an
And when you read about
on this country,
the
seriously.
specific cases, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make.
Cruelty and torture.
Yeah. You wouldn't go into the details.
12-year-old girls.
It's that horrific.
Yeah.
It's that horrific.
Yeah.
Some of the petrol being poured over the heads of some of the victims.
Oh, my God.
All sorts and everything. Absolutely.
Some were branded.
Yeah, I've met many of the victims.
What about the gentleman who used a broken bottle on a girl and then prayed to Allah for forgiveness afterwards?
Goodness me. And one of the victims who was coerced into marrying one of the perpetrators, and the social worker attended the wedding. I mean, you couldn't make it, and then his parents were encouraged to foster the
But a lot of the social workers and some of the police in the areas and the councillors are infiltrated by, you know, some people that think, well, that
have a particular view.
Yeah. So, Phil, what do you say?
No, I was just going to say it. Just like you just listen to some of these things, it feels like you talk about another country, really, doesn't it? I mean, Heather, I don't know about what you think, but it just feels like you talk about another country half the time when you hear some of these horror stories.
To you, Simon, you are part of that failure. You failed on saving these girls' lives in your constituency areas. You could have done a hell of a lot better.
No, Heather. Just to correct you there, I did do a lot. I met many of the victims. I represented many of the victims. Most of the victims actually were in Haywood and Middleton, which is in the constituency next door, and were for Jim Dobbin to sort out. But I took their cases on their behalf.
Simon, can I come in on that? Because when you say you could have done more, I'm confident that you, as an individual, could not have done more. I think that's a fair thing, even though you and I are mates. But you, as a system, did nothing. You know, you as a Labour Party did really very little. You as a group of people who were related to the governing party of Rochdale did virtually nothing. And so do you regret that you failed to persuade the Labour Party to take action?
Yeah, I do. That's the saddest part of the whole episode for me, actually. And it made me thoroughly depressed, because I knew what had happened to the victims, and yet I failed to persuade people in the higher echelons of the Labour Party to have a different view. That really saddened me, and probably increased my exit out of Parliament, in actual fact.
But they weren't in government then. Would it be different now? Would you have just said, right, I'm resigning the whip because you're not doing anything about it?
No, but they could.
Shouldn't we have Labour MPs now saying, if you don't do this, I'm resigning?
Well, that would be the conviction view to take, wouldn't it? And
so there's not one of them doing it.
No, but it would also follow suit as well, given that actually the clip we were hearing on Jess Phillips, so how many times when they were in opposition were they crying out saying that what's wrong with the Tories for not doing enough? Now they're the governing party and they're still not doing enough.
It's a uni-party, isn't it?
Yeah,
uni-party.
Totally. And I remember a letter in the Rochdale Observer from an Asian guy, a Muslim guy. It said, listen, remember, this was a public letter in the letters page, remember who put you into Parliament. Threatening me. Stop raising this issue of ethnicity and religion. Remember that we put you there. And I had loads of pressure from the Rochdale Council of Mosques. What you doing raising this? It's outrageous. So you have a lot.
But actually, therein lies almost the justification of why those particular MPs that you mentioned in your article were saying, don't say anything.
No, am I wrong? Yeah. Am I wrong when I assert, or I asserted, and I've asserted it many times, that the mosque never asked the police to cover this up?
The mosque never... No, well, I think the police had an agenda where you just, you celebrate multiculturalism. That's what the Chief Constable said. Straight after the Rochdale grooming scandal, he came to a meeting in Rochdale Town Hall. Sir Peter Fay, they knighted him, not surprisingly, as often happens. And he came, and one of the first things he said to this public meeting was, I'm here to celebrate multiculturalism.
And you should have said, I thought you were a policeman.
Yeah, because he was like a social worker, and a bad one at that. There's no doubt about it.
But I mean, the rest of the community, I heard a case where, the family of the rapists were in court calling the names, the young girls, So although they're not involved in the actual rape, they're still backing them up.
Oh, yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
this whole community, you know, of that, you know...
But there was a feeling, Asher, there was a feeling that, look, come on, these are slutty white girls. Don't stop complaining about the fact that we're having
Somebody
a go at them.
a policeman called a 12-year-old girl, oh, she's basically a child prostitute.
Yeah,
I mean, you go... And a judge said, you raped this girl because she didn't give consent that last time. She was 12, so she couldn't give consent
Never
any
consent.
time.
Yeah, no, and children can't be prostitutes.
Can I ask you this question, right? So, when I go down to my local fish and chip shop, right, the guy who owns it does not have a network of safe houses, vehicles to transport people in between those safe houses, whatever. How many of these are just complete gangsters and drug dealers in of themselves? Because I would suggest to you that if you own an outlet, have vehicles that can transport illicit goods between a network of safe houses, you're probably a drug dealer as well.
Yeah, and some of these perpetrators were trafficking the girls from Heywood and Middleton all over the north of England to be abused.
They were 24-hour taxi companies and chicken shops. They were nighttime workers, and you know, they got loads of cars.
It's truly awful. But you talk about relatives and others in the community. I had the cousin of one of the perpetrators come and see me at my surgery, and he sat there, and he said, "You've got to make representations to get my cousin back out of prison." You know, I said, "Well, I'm not going to do. You know, I'm going to report." He said, "I'm going to report you to Ed Miliband, who was leader of the Labour Party." I said, "Go and report me to whoever you want."
So said he already hates me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I threw him out of the office.
How much of the? I mean, look. At the end of the day, and there's no point in going over old ground, but you had a difficult divorce, and that cost you heavily politically. But how much of you being a pariah was related to the fact that you weren't willing to play ball with these people? Because effectively, it's always the same. Certain people have political capital and certain people don't. And I always got the impression with you that you went through a difficult divorce and there was acrimony and all that, but really, you didn't have anything in the tank politically to save yourself from being thrown out of office.
Yeah, and it suited the powers that be. You can reflect on it now, as I do, and you can quite see all the manoeuvring and everything that was happening. Tony Lloyd had become police commissioner. Yeah. He didn't become Greater Manchester mayor. They wanted to find him a seat, and he slotted into Rochdale, whether people of Rochdale liked that or not. And it was convenient to be able to get rid of me. I wasn't a Corbynite, and some of the centrists didn't like the fact that I were raising this very issue and causing problems.
You've got to toe the line. I mean, this is why we've ended up with all the chiefs of police across the country are people who politicians who are looking for the next job, so they won't investigate stuff. They won't. And also, if we look into these old, child rape allegations, which is still ongoing, it's going to head back to the DPP, and the former head was Keir Starmer, so that would open a whole can of worms. Yeah. So they're going to keep trying to cover it up.
I'll tell you what is remarkable, Asher, about Sir Keir Starmer's role as Director of Public Prosecutions. He doesn't seem to be able to hang his hat on anything he did properly. No. Everything that comes back to Keir Starmer as Director of Public Prosecutions appears to have been dire. Now, not perhaps as bad as Alison Saunders, who just said, let's prosecute as many men as possible for rape, and unfortunately many of them were innocent. But Keir Starmer's been a shambles, hasn't he?
Yeah, and there is a video of when he was Director of Public Prosecutions where he says, it's like a training video, I think, where he's talking to the CPS, and he says, everything comes across my desk. All the important cases come across my desk. I make all the key decisions, from top down. And then when you raise any issue with him subsequently, well, what about Jimmy Savile? I didn't know about that. Yeah, I never, fired. No, that didn't come across my desk either. All the crucial cases didn't come across his desk all of a sudden. I find it difficult to believe.
I suppose when you're talking, Phil, about all of these sexual abuse cases, there seems to be a remarkable degree of cowardice within the police. I think you can draw a line from Jimmy Savile to the Rochdale Grooming guys, even though you believe you can't because of Tony Lloyd's ludicrous speech. But actually, it's pissed people who the police are afraid to prosecute, afraid to investigate, not afraid to prosecute. It's not their role to prosecute. But there seems to be a group of untouchables who, for whatever reason, are untouchable.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any seems to be about it. There is, absolutely. How many times within the last year alone have we heard the expression two-tier policing? And the bottom line is, it's because it's exactly what we've got. You know full well that if there is an individual who happens to be from a certain background, or more importantly, I think, has more violent tendencies, forget the background. I think it's more about the vicious nature of some individuals. If there are individuals who the police ultimately live in fear of, they are not going to pursue them through fear they might get a cut knee or something like that. Whereas if you know that there are people who won't fight back, they suddenly come down heavy on them like a ton of bricks.
But
And
it's also political,
revolting.
isn't it? They get voted out if they don't. I mean, in Rochdale, we had the Cyril Smith thing, didn't we, where everyone in the community, well, not everyone, but lots of people knew of his, paedophilia, going to child's homes, and yet he went on for years and years. So, I mean, is there a culture up there, or is that all over the country?
No, I think it's all over the country. I named Cyril Smith in 2012 using parliamentary privilege as a paedophile.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wrote the book.
Remind us exactly what happened.
Well,
he was
not with him, with you.
SDP MP, was he?
He's Liberal Democrat, so he'd been the MP from 72 to 92. I become the candidate in 2007 in Rochdale, and people in the community are talking about Big Cyril having been a paedophile. I mean, there's no...
And that was presumably a surprise to you? Because he was a well-known bloke, that big balloon.
But he was well known as a paedophile to certain kids' homes.
But I mean, I was from the Northwest. He was a well-known figure. I mean, I didn't know.
He was a national figure. He came on the show here about 30 years ago.
Absolutely. He did a lot of TV. That's why the book that I wrote about him, that came out in 2014, is called Smile for the Camera, The Double Life of Cyril Smith. It was quite literally a 26-stone, larger-than-life, friendly,
he was more
funny
than that,
politician.
And he came across as really cuddly and nice, which is often how they...
And as an important aside, there is an episode of Jim Will Fix It where you've got Jimmy Savile obviously presenting, Cyril Smith and Gary Glitter. I mean, you wouldn't, in all seriousness, you would not want to have been a child on that show. I mean, but he knew Smith. Smith and Savile knew each other. So I hear all this in 2007. And then, as the Savile story broke, some of Smith's victims came to me as the MP for Rochdale, and I met them and I listened to them. And before
was it? Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but was it clear at that point that they were telling the truth? I mean, were they credible? How do you assess this sort of thing as a layperson?
Don't ask Tom Watson if it's credible.
No, exactly. That's a peculiar story in itself. Well. By this time, I've met a number of victims, and I'm not exaggerating to say I would have people coming up to me in the pub when I was socialising saying, listen, I've been a victim of abuse as well.
Wow.
And before you know it, you quickly build up a picture. And then my second wife had been abused. That became apparent, sexually abused as a child. So you quickly build up a picture and understanding of what a victim...
They go to children's homes. I mean, that was Savile and it was Cyril Smith. He'd help out, and then obviously he was doing other things.
I mean,
absolutely.
To have your own keys to a children's home and a bedroom. I mean, what sane person who is not in child protection goes, oh, I must have ticket, I must have my own bedroom in a children's home, or I've got a flat in Broadmoor, and you think to yourself, well,
can I have the keys to the morgue?
If somebody asks, I mean, you go to all sorts of places when you're in politics, but you visit them, you don't move in.
Yeah, exactly, totally. And that was his modus operandi. He was the school governor of about 26 schools in Rochdale, peculiar over the years. You know, he really ran the education department for a long time, but that's how he got access to... this isn't unusual, is it?
No. When you hear all of the stuff like this, you know, we always go around sort of making out as if the UK is as a bastion of the world. You know, we're so prim and proper, we always get everything right, and we should be inflicting our stance on life on other countries. You hear stuff like that, and actually you realise that we are just the pits half of this country.
I think people realise now.
But what really annoys me more than anything is that we've got a load of people flapping about it saying, oh, isn't it terrible, it's disgusting. Yes, we all know it is. Now let's actually get some action going to prove that we know it was wrong, and that people who are still alive to pay the price will pay the price. Because I'm just fed up of it. I can't bear hearing this, thinking that this is this once beautiful country.
Right, thank you, Heather. Before we go to the break, we're going to chat to Phil in Worthing. Phil.
Wow, I've got to say, Ash, what an incredible programme. How are you, Ash?
I'm all right, man. How are you? Did you have a good New Year, yeah?
absolutely superb. But listen, what an incredibly detailed programme tonight, and discussing things that not normally discussed on that. Mr. Janjuk, in my opinion, is one of the most honourable politicians this country has ever had.
Well, there we go. I think let's give him a round of applause.
It's good you think that, Phil.
It's amazing. It's amazing, though, Phil, that for all the reasons that you like him, he lost his career in politics.
Yeah, that's what happens.
It's just amazing.
Conviction politicians are in trouble in the police.
Andre, you're exactly right. And by the way, Andre, you're always bang on the button, as usual, bringing up the subjects that nobody else wants to discuss on television. And I've got to be honest, Andre, you and Ash are an absolute diamond in this country. We've got
diamond in the rough.
You.
But Phil, I mean...
Well, that's 3 out of 4 who've got praise. I'm just waiting.
What about Phil?
What worries me, Phil, is they're not doing anything about this because of vested interest. And I think what Phil Dave just said then is this. I think sometimes we have such a high opinion of ourselves because so much has been covered up, we don't know the bad behaviour that goes on behind the scenes.
That's worse. We bury our heads.
Absolutely. And let me just say one more thing, Ash. You know I'm from Birmingham. God bless you, Ash.
God bless you, man.
It's all about, there's nobody on TV talking about these situations.
Well, what's going on in Birmingham? Because Birmingham isn't one of the cities mentioned, but, I've got mates down there.
Well, I live in Sussex, Ash. I'm a
successful Brummie.
Expatriate, exactly. And you said last week there's some weird people in S. You're right, there's some weird people. But Ash,
it's going on all over the country.
No, but Ash, listen, I don't want to say much more. But the things I want to say tonight are very important. I've got to get this over. I've been trying to get on for a week.
Go on, get it out. Better out than in.
I want to get it on. Andre, thank you so much, Andre.
You've said all that.
Ash. Thank you so much, Ash.
That's all right, Bubba.
If we hadn't got people like you standing up for us, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who have we got?
Who have we got?
We've got Mr. Danjuk as the most honourable politician on this planet. Thank you so much, by the way, sir.
All right, Phil, thank you. Thank you so much. By the way, Martin in Rutland has made a fair point. I'll just read it to you. Labour-run Rotherham Social Services were quick to remove 3 foster children during 2012 as the foster parents belonged to UKIP, not so eager when it came to Muslims who raped children. That is Martin in Rutland. We'll be back straight after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, Sadiq Khan, I believe... do you know what? Let me tell you the truth about Sadiq Khan as far as I'm concerned. Most politicians you meet, some are intelligent, some are stupid, some have good ideas, some have bad ideas, some have no ideas at all and just hang around. But most of them are in it for the right reasons and genuinely trying to do the right thing by the community. That's not true of Sadiq Khan. He's a man who dines out on hatred and division, who just wants to have a fight with people. And so, of course, when he got his knighthood, he'd have to stir the pot, wouldn't he? He said that his children believe the knighthood is a joke, that he's a sellout, and has now become part of the establishment. He couldn't even get the knighthood.
His kids were right, actually.
He couldn't even get the knighthood without slagging the whole process off. Phil Dave.
Well, I might suggest, actually, this is possibly the first time I've agreed with a member of the Khan family. But it is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I'm not wishing to go over old ground, but I just think the fact that he has even been given the knighthood, it is actually the first time that I've ever thought to myself, maybe the honours system is a bit of a joke now. You know, I always used to defend it. I was actually a staunch defender of the honours system. I used to think it was a beautiful part of this, again, once great country of ours. But now I just see that if it's going to be dished out like sweets to people who absolutely have done nothing to deserve it, beyond nothing.
For services to knife crime is why...
Well, absolutely.
It's not an argument. It's not an argument to say.
No, it's not an argument.
Okay, so let me just put this forward. They always say other buggers effort, OBE, mad but enthusiastic, MBE, right? Now, look, the reason they say mad but enthusiastic for the MBE is because the vast majority of them go to local volunteers who have dedicated their entire life to the local swimming club or whatever. And you know, they are, quite rightly, slightly mad to have done this for their entire career. But if it wasn't for the famous people who get the MBEs, the OBEs and CBEs, then it would all feel a bit crappy, wouldn't it?
No,
so you need a certain number.
But the knighthoods are different.
No, hang on a second.
Give them to people who deserve it.
Yeah, but let me just finish the point. Isn't there an argument then for giving it to people who don't deserve it just because they're famous in order to make the whole thing look more credible?
No, but there's don't deserve it because they are famous, and then there's don't deserve it ever. And that is the category in which Sadiq Khan falls into.
Exactly.
I mean, how on earth is it possible? No one could look at him and think, what a worthy recipient.
It's rewarding failure.
Totally.
That's the problem.
But that's been going on for years, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, it has, yeah. And linking it back to the last, David Steele, who nominated Cyril Smith for a knighthood. Can you believe it? Knowing that he was a paedophile.
Well, Boris got his 30-year-old intern girl. She's now a lady.
That's the difference.
I mean, this is a knighthood, isn't it? Sadiq Khan gets the same as the man who invented the World Wide Web.
Yeah, no, I know. It's rewarding failure. I live in London, and you go around London now, the tube network is failing at every opportunity. Knife crime is outrageous. No. Theft and stealing and shoplifting is off the scale.
Dare I say this to you? Is the knighthood for Sadiq Khan really about the Labour Party trying to make Sadiq the most important Muslim politician in Britain and Labour?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, that's right. It might be also trying to put him off the idea of actually running for leader. Yeah, exactly.
I think him running for leader, I think if he became Prime Minister, we would have significant problems. I'm sorry, and people complain about this. His relationship with Babar Ahmed, the lead of the Al-Qaeda fundraising on the internet, it remains unexplained. He visited him before he was his Member of Parliament. He described him on his website first as his best friend at school, next as his cousin, then as a close friend, then somebody barely knew, and then somebody he'd never met.
I do not know that story at all. But it's
then Babar Ahmed later pleaded guilty for being the person who began Al-Qaeda fundraising on the internet. Now, I'm not saying that Sadiq Khan is involved in Al-Qaeda.
Well, he allowed an advert on the tube, didn't he, of a Muslim extremist guy?
It would be ludicrous to suggest that. But bluntly, the guy has said originally, my best friend at school is an Al-Qaeda terrorist. That's why I visited him in Belmarsh. Well, I mean, that's not great.
No,
that's not great.
No, totally. But his priorities are all wrong. If it's any consolation, I can't imagine him becoming Labour leader. I think there's too many who are in the running for it. Wes Street in other people, Darren Jones perhaps. So I don't.
Was Lee Anderson right when he said, you know, those comments about, you know, he's got lots of Islamist friends? And...
Well, I think I can't recall the precise detail of what Lee Anderson said, but he got called out, didn't he? And that's when he started...
he doubled down though, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think the other problem is, if you're talking about the Hezbollah Tahrir people that he defended as a human rights lawyer, clearly he was the go-to person. But then again, you know, Gareth Pearce is not a member of the IRA, and she's the go-to person for IRA suspects. So I suppose it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
I know that you're trying to sort of be nice and balanced about this, Andre, and it's very commendable, but let's be honest about this, right? You look at someone like Stephen Fry.
Oh, look, he hates me, right?
No,
just let's be clear.
Well, don't worry, I'm fairly sure the feeling's mutual, to be honest. But let's look at someone like Sir Stephen Fry, OK? He has been given...
He's not Sir, is he now?
Yeah, he's been given the knighthood in the New Year's Honours for services to raising awareness for mental health, OK? Right, so very important subject that it really needs as much discussion as possible. That's why he's been knighted. Then you look at Sadiq Khan, who's been honoured in the same New Year's Honours list. Why? You put someone like Sir Stephen Fry out there, brilliant. He's done amazing work. He's used his position for good. Sadiq Khan, Sadistic Khan, has used his position for his own purposes.
OK, let me ask you this. In that same honours list, there was also Ranul Jayawardeneh, who was...
He used to play for Arsenal.
Who was once declined a seat on the National Executive of the Young Conservatives for being too thick, right? He has also got a knighthood.
Well, since David Lammy became Foreign Secretary...
You know, all right, look, I loathe Sadiq Khan. I reported him to the police twice during the 2010 general election. Right? He hates me. Well, I mean, he put his Christmas cards on parliamentary expenses. I maintain it's fraud. But anyway, so look, I hate Sadiq, and I'm sorry he got a knighthood, but he's not the only unworthy person on that list.
It's fair to say knife crime is that bad in London now. When King Charles comes at him with the sword, he's not going to flinch, is he? He won't flinch. He'll be absolutely fine.
A zombie knife.
Instead, a bit more appropriate.
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't it be brilliant if King Charles did knight him with a zombie knife?
No, better still, he'll knight him with a bicycle pump or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Unbelievable. But it is a sad day, really. I'll tell you what I find sad about the whole thing. It's not that Sadiq got a knighthood. It's that he remains incredibly, well, not popular, but he remains a winner politically.
Well, look, we've got a break, so can we hold your answers until after this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and I just wanted to remind you to follow us on Twitter. In fact, I'm going to log into my Twitter now, so it's @virtualash.
Andre JP Walker.
Oh, yes, baby, come on.
But ring us 03444991000.
OK, what are we talking about now then, Asher?
Well, Kim Jong-un...
You said hold your answers for Sadiq Khan, didn't you?
Yeah, we do. Let's get those quickly. Your Sadiq Khan answers, but I think we all agree here he should be nowhere
Well, can I just point out one thing about Sadiq Khan? And I promise I won't bang on about him anymore, because I think my feelings are well and truly known. The fact is that how many times since he's been elected to his rather prestigious position of Mayor of London has he been banging on about the pollution in the air and trying to make the air better for London? How much pollution do you think went off on New Year's Eve with all those fireworks?
Oh, God, shut up.
Also, the particulates on the tube. I was a bit inebriated one night, and I bought a particle machine.
Oh, the tube is filthy.
And it actually says the most, it goes red and flashes, and it's gone over the particulates. So he doesn't really care about pollution, because there's people going every day that will end up with lead and all kinds of metals.
It's about raising money, isn't it? That's
of course it is. And getting rid of the car, because it doesn't make any money on cars.
I once asked the London Underground whether it was poisoned with anthrax, right? Now, you've got to remember, when they first made the Underground, they used to mix the plaster with uncured horsehair, which can have anthrax on it, apparently.
Well, they might have used asbestos years ago.
So far, Transport for London have found no case of anthrax on the tube.
Give it time.
I thought it was worth that.
There's metallic particles and everything down there, and it literally goes
would have been lead-based paint as well.
Yeah.
They go cleaning every night, which is now crumbling.
It's got its own species of mouse, its own species of flea in the tube.
Oh, no, it's got its own type of mosquito.
Yeah, and tsetse fly. It's got everything down there.
Tsetse fly.
But anyway... Sexy flies, yeah. You don't want to see what they get up to. But anyway, Kim Jong-un, yeah, he's people who get divorced now. His solution is put them in the gulags in the the camps he has. So I mean,
that's going to be a problem for me. I've been divorced twice. I'm on my third and final marriage. Yeah.
Well, never say never, but don't go to North Korea.
No, exactly. That's a good travel tip.
Yeah. Just in general,
it's changed, but it's just a gangster economy apparently. There, it's just basically drugs, and they're just selling weapons and cyber fraud. Apparently, they tried to nick billions and trillions off Bangladesh. That's all they do now, because they've got no money coming in.
But the thing
so you know about divorce. So what do you think about Kim Jong-un's crackdown?
I think it's a bit draconian, actually, in my humble opinion. Yeah, absolutely.
But when you make a vow, it's a vow, isn't it? It's for life. It's meant to be, but it's not really.
Well, no, so I mean, I would argue, and obviously this is very easy for me to say because I've never been married, so hence I've never been divorced. But I mean, I can't help but observe from an outside perspective, it does appear to be very easy in this day and age for people just to throw in the towel and get divorced. But I don't know whether or not that's a good thing.
It's not been easy for Simon.
No, but that's a fact. No, but what I mean
or cheap. Apparently you only get 6 months, but women women face longer sentences, which is why do they always get the
there might be some justification to that in my humble
So I mean, obviously I'm not justifying what Kim Jong-un has done by any stretch. I never would do, actually, to be honest with you, but
but he's on a winner here, isn't he?
There's got to be a happy medium somewhere along the lines of, like, there's a reason why divorce statistics...
Send them to Butlins, then.
No, but the divorce statistics in this country, they are... I think now divorce has actually outweighed marriage for, like, one of the first times or something like that. So that is the case. There's got to be something going wrong.
The idea is that you have to stay together forever, and perhaps we are, as creatures, we're not the sort of
You used to have to get an Act of Parliament to get divorced.
Yes, well, that's going back...
Anyway, we've got time for a call just before the news. Michelle in London wants to talk about Sir Sadiq Khan.
You are absolutely a gorgeous bunch. You don't know how good-looking you are. I don't know if it's the cameras, but anyway...
It really isn't.
It's the makeup.
You, Andre, wow, Ash, wow, and your other two sexy gentlemen there.
That's right, said Fred. We got right, said Fred in tonight.
I'm going to sing later.
Tonight, I feel quite wimp. But mind you, I've had a bit of ginger. But listen, Sadiq Khan...
You can tell.
Right, I'm a bit hyper about this. I really have got the utmost respect. This channel keeps my sanity. Honestly.
That's why we're here,
you
man.
really do. And Ash, the way you and your brother explain things, it's I'm not being rude, but it's very orgasmic because it's to the point.
Andre's not my brother.
Oh, right.
He's my
anyway,
uncle.
It's the voices. Right, let's get back. Right, listen. About Sadiq Khan, what it is, right? I've never voted for him. I don't like Labour since the 70s. I was around. I've seen it, been there, done it. Got the T-shirt, clean your windows with it. But listen, this is outrageous. They're treating criminals like victims and victims like criminals. Now, I have to respect his children, Sadiq Khan, because they have got some bit of humanity in him. This is what I'm so
probably skipped a generation.
About. Is like, to give someone a knighthood, you have to do something. You don't get the normal, the prize for not doing.
But they say he's won 3 times for Labour. I mean, at least he's not been made a lord. Although that could come.
Oh, that will come.
Heaven forbid.
What do you think, Sam?
It could come, couldn't it? Yeah, another reason to stop him becoming leader as well.
But all this postal voting is rubbish.
They got to ban that.
But what I'm saying is, if he had the little tiny bit of humanity in him, like what is left of him, because he's a very small man, and that, I'm not being descriptive because my old man is small, but I love him. But he should give this to the fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters whose blood is being spilled on his London.
Constantly. Thanks, Michelle.
I love the video that's going round, which is him where he's at Bikes for Refugees, and it cuts it in with all these people. He's going, with this charity's giving away bikes to refugees so they can really get round London, and it's cut in with people nicking phones when they're on the backs of bikes.
They get free bikes anyway, but he said recently they should all get free travel, you know, which is
because look, somebody said to me once that Sadiq Khan hates Britain and hates London. That's not true. He's a patriot for Britain and he's a patriot for London. But it's the sort of multicultural, refugees welcome sort of thing. It's exactly the same as when the white people got to America and just said, it doesn't matter what was here before, what is here now is important. That's the London that he wants, where...
He took white people out of the brochure, said they don't represent London.
But they don't represent it, as far as he's concerned.
37% now.
White people are the past, and immigrants and refugees are the future of London. That's what he wants.
Newspapers next. Newspaper review next.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal whole left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the paper review on Talk with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. And just to say who our special guests are in today, we've got Simon Danchuk. He's the former Member of Parliament for Rochdale, and indeed Phil Dave, who is a broadcaster. Welcome to the two of you.
Good to join you.
Thank you.
OK, well, Asher, what's the first paper?
Right, well, good morning, everyone. Daily Express, a Kemi inquiry into UK's rape gangs is long overdue. Was she saying that when she was... when they were in government? Kemi Badenoch has demanded a national inquiry into the rape gang scandal. The Tory leader joined Elon Musk in calling for an investigation after the government chose not to lead a public inquiry into historical child sex abuse in Oldham. Miss Badenoch said yesterday the time is long overdue for a full national inquiry into the rape gang scandal. Trials have taken place all over the country, so it's a national issue, and it is about time. But, you know, I mean, she's saying something, but what were they doing when they were in
Simon, I mean, obviously, this is... You're the former MP for Rochdale, this is Oldham, but why on earth are the Labour Party dragging their heels?
Well, because they don't want it. They don't want to shine a light on the Muslim community, and because it can adversely affect
and the own DPP, where Keir Starmer was the boss of it.
Well, exactly, yeah, and not enough prosecutions were made. But I think there should be a national inquiry. I completely agree with that. I would worry if Labour set it up, because they will give it terms of reference that end up saying or achieving very little. But it is a bit rich, I have to say, the Conservatives now calling for a national inquiry when they've been in power for 14 years and could have easily called for one themselves.
But then, to be fair, Labour also called for things to be done when they were in opposition, and now they're in power. They're still not doing it.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of in 2011 when Andy Burnham took to TV saying there's been a cover-up over Hillsborough and all the details should now come out. Well, you were the Secretary of State for half
well, now he's the head of the police, effectively, in Manchester. So bring in Maggie Oliver. She knows more. She's done this for 20 years. She used to be a copper. She got driven out. Because of this.
She has a fantastic record.
Well, Burnham should bring her in then, shouldn't he?
Yeah, of course he should. But yeah, no, there should be a national inquiry, and we have to keep pressing for the right terms of reference.
Independent.
And independent, and the ability to call witnesses, insist on calling witnesses.
Them,
and even result in prosecutions of some kind.
And what about, I heard Peter Blexley earlier on the station, he was saying there should be a royal inquiry into the police, because the police has totally failed.
A royal commission on policing.
I think
that's what he said.
You know, people say to me about, they say, what did you learn from becoming an MP? And this is always the story I tell, the police and how they make decisions on what they do police and what they don't police came as an absolute shock to me. And you alluded to it earlier, Phil. You know, they decide politically what they're going to police and what they're not going to police. And that's what I identified when I was a member of Parliament.
And even refused two Home Secretaries saying, get rid of these non-crime hate incident things. And the College of Police, and they're set up by Cameron, they're just going, no, we're going to carry on with these non-crime...
It's diversionary tactics, isn't it? Just get on with policing crime. Never mind non-crime.
Why would you do that if it's easier not to?
Yeah. Well, the Twitters are crimes, effectively, aren't they?
But just to be very clear, so I understand in my mind, you meet with a police officer and say, people have been coming to my surgery complaining about inaction over child grooming. It's hit the press. It's very clear there is a major problem with people from the Muslim and Pakistani community having effectively immunity from prosecution, immunity from investigation. What do the police then say to you?
Oh, well, and I met with the Chief Constable and Tony Lloyd, who was the police commissioner, and we had a meeting with him, but you don't get anywhere. This is dealing with the blob, as it's now commonly known. So obstacles are put in your way. You know, it's just made exceptionally difficult unless you have really powerful people, you know, shouting about it like the Home Secretary or the Prime Minister. Then you achieve very little as a backbench MP. There's no doubt about that.
Just outrageous. I mean, when you think the police are there to protect us, and it just goes to show.
They're there to protect themselves, aren't they? The other story, UK's biggest ever dinosaur footprint site unearthed. Anyway,
dinosaur footprints outside Jimmy Knapp's old house.
The Soaraway Sun next, and Sarah's killer dad slashed with tuna tin lid. The killer dad of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif has had his throat slashed in prison with the jagged lid of a tuna tin. 2 inmates ambushed Irfan Sharif, 43, in his cell at Tough HMP Belmarsh. He was attacked on New Year's Day, just weeks into his life sentence for murdering innocent Sarah. That was a horrific case. I mean, it sort of leads on to this, doesn't it?
It's really difficult with this because this is an assault and it's criminality. We'd never encourage criminality. Let's just say this. I don't care that he's been injured.
Well, I think I'd put it in a slightly different way. I would say, doesn't it just go to show how heinous a crime he is guilty of committing when you've got convicts who are clearly angry about it?
Well, it's well known if you do stuff to children, you know, there's things it shouldn't, but, you know...
I was going to say, like you, Andre, I know lots of people who've done time, and it's and it's fair to say...
MPs,
and it's fair to say this guy's life will be made a misery in that beyond belief, and I'm not too sympathetic.
Let me tell you something else, Simon. Let me put this straight to you. I had never met anyone who had been convicted of serious crime, prosecuted for a serious crime, or gone to prison until I got into politics. It was only when I got into politics I began to meet these people.
Well, I know 5 lords that we've had on over the years that have been to prison.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's higher than the general population. That's the House of Lords.
I remember in one of my seminars, at university, somebody was saying the House of Lords is more diverse than it's ever been before. We have black lords, we have Asian lords, we have female lords, we have gay people in there.
Gay lords.
We have gay people in there.
Used to be a great Indian in Birmingham, the gay lord. Right, The Guardian.
I'm very pleased you moderated that.
The Guardian and FBI New Year terror suspect acted alone nearly a year before. Apparently, an hours before he was threatening all this. So I don't know where the FBI were.
I want to ask you all a question because this is something that struck me. The FBI have been criticised because originally they said that the attacker in New Orleans was potentially part of a wider group, and then they've gone back on that.
Yeah.
That has brought into focus questions about whether the FBI should release as much information as they do. Now, you look at that on the flip side with what happened in Southport, where by releasing as little as possible, there was significant problems. What side are we on?
I think you have to release information, don't you? You have to let the public know what's going on.
I do, but the only time I'd say that is I think after someone has sort of been found and basically dealt with. So here's my problem, is I think that for as long as someone is at large or remains unpunished for their crime, unfortunately, releasing too much information can inspire others. Yeah. So when you actually sort of find someone, lock them up, and then say, right, this is the punishment they've received for it, that basically tells someone, if you do this, this will happen to you. Do you see what I mean?
But they're all going, it seems like it's coming from the, you know, they're all going in WEF, and it's been all countries, Berlin, you know, Germany are covering it up, they're covering up stuff here. I mean, on Halloween, I've seen the video, someone in Edinburgh found a decapitated head. The police said, oh, yeah, he was hit by a bus. No bus companies come forward. There was no body, no blood, just a perfectly decapitated head. That's all gone quiet. What was that all about?
No, I think that's right. The priority here is to say, if this guy is an Islamic terrorist, let's make sure nobody knows about it. And you get people, and I've said this before on the show, where they go into the police station having been arrested and say, I am doing this because I'm a member of the Islamic State, and the police immediately release, we don't suspect terrorism, we treat this as a mental health incident.
But can we actually say that this is the truth of the matter is that we all know that these fundamentalists, which is what they are, okay, right? I'm sort of slightly sick of people saying Islamists, because they know full well, these fundamentalists, that if they hide behind Islam, they can get away with it because people will be too scared to say anything in case they're accused of racism.
But that is their following of Islam.
But it's their understanding of their religion, but they are not actually following it the way the vast majority of Muslims follow Islam. That is a good point. And that's the whole thing. So for as long as we
Well, I mean, there's 40,000 on the watch list, although there's 5 million maybe live here.
I was going to say, but there's millions of Muslims who live here who, as far as I'm aware...
Yeah, but like I was saying, they may not get involved, but, like, you know, they were in the court and
but what I'm trying to get at
is... They may protect them. They wouldn't graft on their cousin or friend who was a jihadist.
But that's the whole point. That's why, because if they keep sort of saying that they're doing it in the name of Islam, just call them out for what they are. They're not Islamists, they're fundamentalists. They're fundamentalists who basically belong to no religion. They say they're doing it in the name of Islam.
But that's
so
how
they
the
can
liberals
hide
get out of it.
behind
They say that's not Islam. Islam's a religion of peace. I mean, you know, and it used to be, and it's just the younger generation. It's changed since the late 80s, the Salman Rushdie affair, sort of, and Iran sponsoring stuff.
The point is, for as long as these cretins are allowed to hide behind Islam, most of the world is going to be too scared to say anything. And we need to rebrand it.
Just
for
call
all
them
intents and
terrorists.
purposes. Absolutely. Terrorists, fundamentalists, whatever you want to call them. Rebrand it, forget it's anything to do with the religion, call them out for what they are, just say these group of people are a separate bunch of people who've got no place in our society or any of the Western world. If you don't want to believe in our values, don't live here.
But we have MPs now who have different values.
I'll tell you one of the big problems when you have these guest speakers at mosques. Right now, I understand that, frankly, all Asians are significantly more polite to each other than us white dudes, and I do accept that. But you know, if I said that, oh, my church has invited down a Holocaust denier, but you know what, he's just a guest speaker and we don't necessarily endorse his views, that's just the same as saying my mosque has brought down, my local church has brought down a Holocaust denier, and it's just the same as saying my local mosque has brought down somebody who believes that Hamas are marvellous, and yet we allow them to get away with that all the time.
Well, I mean, I think it depends, really, because the way I look at it is that I'm a great believer that everyone's entitled to their opinion as long as it doesn't cause harm to others. So someone can believe that Hamas are wonderful if they want to. I mean, personally, I believe that if anyone thinks that, then they are insane. It's as simple as that. But if someone wants to believe that Hamas are marvellous or they're martyrs, let them think that.
But it's a prescribed terrorist group, so you're actually supporting them.
As long as they don't go around and saying you should think the same, you should be exactly the same as me.
With respect, you're willfully missing my point. My point is, these hate preachers that come on after Friday prayers at the mosque are generally allowed to do it. They're not drummed out in the way that a hate preacher who attempted to preach in a church or a synagogue would not be allowed to do it.
And the community don't police themselves. That's the problem.
Well, I remember Finsbury kicked out. Some mosques are very good. They kicked out Abu Hamza and made him, and the police shut the street for him every day for about 4 or 5 years. So they blocked the road in Finsbury, you know, doing their extremism.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, that's great, isn't it? You have the first mosque, really, in Britain where they've had the guts to kick out the fundamentalists, real hardcore fundamentalists. And what did we respond with? We must shut the street so he can keep doing it. I mean, what? Can you
and then we have to prosecute him at some stage.
Well, America actually had to extradite. France was saying
legal aid.
Apparently, France and America were thinking of sending assassins over, to not bump him off.
We are totally mad.
Can you imagine if they said, right, well, what we've decided to do, we decided to have a big BNP rally in the church, but the church doesn't want it now, so we must shut the street every Friday so they can have it on every week. It's just madness.
Ministers plan biggest shake-up of adult social care for decades. Ministers also launch a historic independent commission to reform adult social care, as they warn older people could be left without vital help unless national consensus is reached on fixing. They aren't getting any help, are they?
They aren't getting any help.
Fed up are you of hearing that there's going to be a shake-up of this, a shake-up of this. Just get on and do it.
No, it's not going to happen.
My favourite is when politicians say, what I want to... I remember once I watched this debate in Parliament, and somebody stood up to a Labour minister and said, look, if we spend X amount, we can cut, the cancer waiting times by Y amount. And the minister, rather than standing up saying, well, clearly we want to have no waiting list for any treatment, but there are priorities, he or she stood up, I can't remember whether it was a bloke or a woman, sometimes it's hard to tell, and they stood up and they went, we need a national debate on this issue. No, we don't. You just need to stand up and say we can't afford it.
Well, apparently this winter fuel repayment thing, they're going to actually lose money because all the pensioners are now looked in and applied for the social credit, and they're actually going to get that, and that's a lot more than what it would have cost them to do that.
And all the administration and all the everything around it that's gone on.
It's about £500 million. It's more than a mess.
Can I just quickly, and I know we're darting slightly off topic, but with the cold weather, Simon, can I ask you this question? The excess deaths expected in the winter period is 30,000. Labour have predicted that the winter fuel payment reduction will kill 4,000 people.
On top of that.
If that number is 34,000 or more, surely Rachel Reeves has to resign.
I would think so. I mean, this is
anyway.
This is a real mess. If you're a Labour MP now and you've got a majority less than 10,000, my advice to you, in all seriousness, would be start developing another career for when you come out
or join
to Parliament.
another party.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. And if it's over 10,000, then spend as much time in your constituency as possible, because you are going to have to fight like hell to keep it. They are so unpopular, and we saw that in Runcorn, didn't we? Where you know, where they've been fighting in the street with their MPs and stuff. So it's a pretty dire situation.
A whole council's quit today, a Labour council.
Yeah, exactly.
About 20 members of them or something. Yeah,
because they know they've got to quit or not be voted in next
Politics are very different. It's very fluid. People are changing.
What do you think about this mealy-mouthed excuse that they've got to cancel the elections? It's something we can see right through.
Oh yeah, reorganisation of counties and district councils. It's a nonsense, isn't it?
And yet, didn't they have a go at the Tories? How many times they were toying with the idea of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Rank hypocrisy.
And just before the break, health toll on Grenfell firefighters revealed. More than a quarter of firefighters who were exposed to toxic smoke have suffered long-term health disorders. So ministers are facing demands for an urgent review after the data from over 500 firefighters who risked their lives at the disaster. So that's very sad. But I mean, the thing is,
with this, Ash, you know, there's at least 11 cases of those firefighters who got cancer.
Really?
Seriously. It's like, if you just think off the back of sort of the life-saving work they were trying to do.
I had a friend who lives around there, and he was raising money. Quite a few of them hanged themselves, you know, killed themselves after, because they were so traumatised. But this Grenfell, and you know, I think these rape gangs are up there. I mean, maybe there should be a massive inquiry, because this is as important as that, and it's an actual
I think it's more important than many of the other scandals that have taken place. No doubt about it. This was abuse on an industrial scale.
Millions of rapes.
I find the Grenfell Tower thing, I mean, part of the problem was that these laws that insist that you have to house the very, very poor in some of the richest parts of the country. These councils are tearing their hair out. There was an example in Westminster City Council where there was a Somalian family living in an £8 million house on the taxpayer. Anyway, I think what we'll do is, that's The Guardian done. I'm surprised you've been so polite about The Guardian.
I can't believe it.
OK. Well, I'll tell you what.
Jacket at me.
We're going to...
Oh, look, there's Mike Graham with his croissant. He'll be joining you after this with his great breakfast show.
Six croissants.
You've got crumbs on you, don't you?
Six croissants. OK, 03 444 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll be back with the Times in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk with all of the front pages in me, Andre Walker, Asher Gould, and we've got Phil Dave, the broadcaster, and Simon Danchuk, the former MP for Rochdale, who has, it has to be said, proved to be very useful as a guest when we go through all this grooming gang stuff.
That's where it began, Rochdale.
Amazing, amazing. Anyway, Asher, I think we're on the Times.
The Times New Orleans attacker had planned to kill his own family. Right, well, let's have a look at that. The New Orleans truck attacker who killed 14 had intended to kill his family but feared the murders would not garner enough publicity for his radical Islamist beliefs. He was shot dead by police moments after driving a Ford pickup truck. Earlier reports that the 42-year-old former soldier from Texas was working with a network of accomplices were quashed yesterday as the FBI said he was now believed to have acted alone. I mean, did they find these pipe bombs and they kept going on about pipe bombs and 3 other people and this Tesla that was blown up with fireworks outside Trump's
the issue with the Tesla is that they both trained at the same base.
Yeah.
They both hired the vehicle from the same hire company.
Yeah,
but it's possible they did not know each other. So it's
a lot of coincidences.
Exactly.
Well, that's the problem. That's why people are trying to join the dots. So can I just say, sort of very quickly on this note, you know, I actually feel like it's quite important for people to understand that sort of when the West cries out that I know that we're not necessarily on the subject of the Middle East, but just to give you this...
But because you're
example,
here, we'll get there.
But no, but if you think of it like this, right, so if this is the kind of attitude we're dealing with where you've got this cretinous individual who carried out this attack, who's potentially planning to kill his own family, death is not something that these people fear. No. So when you're talking about getting around the table and trying to negotiate with these kind of people, these are the people that the West are crying out for Israel to negotiate with. Yeah. So in exactly the same way, after this has just happened in the West, that we wouldn't negotiate with this here in the West, guess what? Israel don't want to negotiate with them either.
Like
it's exactly the same kind of thing.
If you believe in that it's your God, you're not hardly going to negotiate with, you know...
You can't reason with people who want to kill you. It's as simple as that.
He was a convert to Islam, is that right? I think.
However,
they're often the worst ones.
Most fundamental.
The pants bomber.
However, there is a fundamental difference, Phil. We don't have to negotiate with them because they're not our next-door neighbours.
Well, no, it's worse. They live amongst us.
Well, I get that.
To be honest.
But I think he was divorced as well. They made a point of that, and now that it mentions, you know, him trying to kill his own
and they'll
family,
bring that in. They'll say mental health. They'll start bringing in the mental health.
No, in America, they'll give him the full trip. If it was Britain, the first thing we'd say is this was a mental health breakdown. Let's say that first.
I'm looking forward to finding out how the opinion changes on the 20th of January. That's what I'm looking
with
for.
all the cases that they're trying to bury under the Trump inauguration, but it won't work because the cases are going to go on for days and days.
I just wonder how you could be an Islamic fundamentalist in Britain. You know, what's it take to go into a police station after a terrorist attack and persuade them that you were...
you're mad, mate. Don't worry about that.
Well, they make the excuse for them.
Well, that's right. But there are people who regularly go into police stations, having been arrested, going, I have done this because I am a supporter of the Islamic State. And the police release immediately, it was a mental health breakdown.
But you can always say that. If you say you believe in a guy in the sky, they can always go, oh, well, he's obviously mad, but that's just religious.
If you say, voices were telling me to kill someone...
Well, that
is worse. Isn't it? It's the legal aid that we all pay for. Defend them by saying that.
Well, I'll tell you something else. You know, our old friend Andy Chowdhury, Anjam, I bet you that he's going to get out. That we're spending, you and me are spending millions on his legal aid. He's going all the way to Strasbourg. He says the sentence is too harsh. I guarantee you that sentence will be reduced by the court.
Our justice system is just...
His followers did some of the attacks here, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The Westminster Bridge, I think.
Serious attacks. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Gen Z, not Gen Z, dream of an employer for life. Apparently young people want an employer for life, like in the old days when you'd work at factory your whole life and get a watch. Under 27s keen to stay at the same company for twice as long as a print. They don't want jobs, they just want to play on the Tamagotchis and declare they're mentally ill.
I'm going to say, they don't actually want the same... What they want is they want to go into the top job for life. That's what I know.
Yeah, they think they... Among those aged 18 to 27, 75% were searching for secure longer-term work, 57% said they were staying with one employer. It's better to get... These days, it's very transient, isn't it? You go here and there, and that the more you go to, the more you learn.
Yeah.
Well, I think so.
What did you do in your life?
Oh, well, I left school at 16, went straight to a factory making gas fires. I did that for several years. No qualifications. And then I went to college at night, got the qualifications I should have got. And
what
then,
was that then?
And then I ended up doing a mature student doing a degree in sociology. But the work in the factory, that was a good job.
Biology?
You know,
is there something to be said?
In the factory, there was over 1,000 employees in that factory.
I bet they're not there now.
No, it's not there.
We ain't got any gas.
Is there an argument, though, for doing what you did, which is not flunking your exams, right? But doing a couple of years to get some maturity, doing a job, doing night school, whatever. I mean, I went to university, but I have to say, I did a postgraduate at night school at Birkbeck College. University of London has a night school, unbelievably, which is apparently as respected as the other colleges. I thought that was even better. I went to work every day. After work, I'd go and do my postgraduate, and I got a distinction.
No, I really appreciated doing my degree as a mature student. I really enjoyed the study.
You want it then.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't really want it when you're...
And then I did bar work at night every night to pay for my way through it.
He still does bar work, but it's on the other side.
I mean, I take a slightly different approach, because I left school at the age of 15, primarily because I turned 16 during the summer holidays, that's why. But
did you go down gas factory?
I did not go down gas factory, but I tell you what I did do.
This is racism, you know that. It's because we're from the northwest.
It is northerners. You can't help where you were born. Anyway, no, but for me, I went to work straight away. I didn't even wait for the summer holidays to finish. I actually started working as an IT technician. Then sort of part of that was doing web design. In my web design, I sort of happened across a website that I was looking for inspiration. It was for another radio station. It said, it was a frequently asked questions section. It said, how'd you get into radio? It was like a light bulb moment, and that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I did a search off the back of that, and that's how I wound up doing this.
So did you?
So it leads to the thing.
But you've been in radio for the last 50 years now.
but you surprised me as somebody who didn't bother doing A-levels or university. Or
it seems like
I get a few people saying that. No, I was not in the least bit academic. School and me didn't get on, and therefore I didn't fight. What's the point? What on earth is the point of fighting through education when I didn't get on with it? I'm sorry, people might sort of use the term dyslexic nowadays, but they didn't. My teachers used the term thick, and I could deal with that, right? Because it's what I was. I wasn't academic. I wasn't capable of doing.
That's not thick, is it?
Well, whatever it is.
It was at the time.
I worked with it because I thought to myself, well, do you know what? The teachers actually did me the best favour, because they told me in so many words, don't bother with further education. It's not for you. It's not good enough. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I would never be doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for the fact that I left school when I did.
We do have too many people going to university.
Totally.
Well, that's Tony Blair, isn't it? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Education.
I mean, blooming heck, let's do underpants pulling up at the University of Grey buildings. You know, it's just, what the hell?
And then all these so-called academics and lecturers being paid to do an absolute awful job, not doing a proper job.
And they all have to have a political persuasion or you get cancelled.
And the problem is...
No, you've got to have the right political persuasion or you get cancelled.
The problem is to get that number of academics, you need to drop the standard. Some of them are as thick as the wall.
Absolutely.
And the reform of social care is pushed back again. That's just about Labour delaying stuff again, because they obviously got no money because of the 22 billion, nothing to do with that, because they're spending billions of pounds and are useless with the economy.
Well, I'll tell you what we could do. Should we go to a break now?
Yes.
Because this is a really good story in the Daily Mail, which is about NHS managers. The cost of it has absolutely rocketed. So let's go to a break and then let's give that justice when we come back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the paper review with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave and Simon Danchuk. Simon, do you know what? Before we go to the Daily Mail, that was amazing. You said that you'd left school at 16. Yep. In the 80s, on a shop floor, you went to 140 quid a week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we were rolling in money in those days.
It just shows you how...
And up north as well, that's like a millionaire.
I wondered where such a nice suit came from, you know?
But it just shows you how working class jobs now pay nowhere near what they did in the 70s, 80s.
There was actually in a Lowry painting, weren't you? Sparking your clothes.
Actually, doesn't that go to show they don't have to pay that now? This is half the problem, is because we've become so used to cheap imported labour that it just scares people off. It's a combination of the two things. It's cheap imported labour, and it's also what we were saying about everyone going to university and basically successive generations being told you're too good to do a certain job, therefore you don't need to do this.
When you've got immigration controls and strong trade unions, and whether you like them or not, the trade unions played a big part of this. They played a big part of this. They wouldn't allow them to pay the poverty wages.
Well, that was a unionised place, and you couldn't work there unless you joined the trade union. It was a closed shop. By law, you had to join the union to work in that factory.
I'll tell you what, people like Uber and Just Eat would have been stopped in the 70s.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no,
but the thing is, in 2007, we were actually a bit richer than the average American. We could buy a bit more stuff. Now, scroll forward to now, and their average wage is $65,000. Just their average wage is 50 grand, about double our one. So you can see what's gone on.
Yeah.
We're a low-wage, low-skill economy.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail, pay of NH managers. This is the big one. Pay of NHS managers soars to 1.1 billion. The pigs are at the trough. NHS managers' salaries have soared by more than 1.1 billion despite repeated failures to hit targets, the Mail can reveal. That's why they don't care. You get paid for failure. While manager numbers in the health service in England have swelled by 10,000 in a decade, 1,150 fully qualified GPs have left in the same period, and the nurses are getting terrible state of affairs. And as the army of managers grows, hospitals and ambulances routinely fail to meet performance targets on waiting lists, cancer treatment and response times. Why would you? It doesn't matter. You still get the pay rise. It comes as damning survey revealed that 83% of Britons have major concerns about the state of health service and don't think Labour's plans will fix it. You don't say. Health Secretary Westring says failing hospitals will be named and shamed in league tables and NHS managers sacked if they fail to make improvements.
That is not true.
You know what? It's actually about the 83% of us are worried about the state. I'm actually surprised it's as low as 83%, to be honest.
Well, it's probably people who just got cured by them. You know, when you get cured by them, you go, oh, they're
still
great.
Still worried about the state of it.
Does it feel like as though we've got a Labour government and now everybody in the public sector is just hammering the government for more money? They've seen the trade drive,
they've seen the unions, so they're going, we want a piece of the action.
It's not Labour, it's Claimer. If they should call themselves Claimer. They're like the Soviet Union now. Yeah. They don't represent the workers. They represent the public sector. Yeah, and so you've just got this revolving door. So the actual workers, the actual working class people are just completely ignored. It's purely now there is a government staffed by civil servants and public sector workers who are represented by the Labour Party. And they're the government.
And they're trying to grow the economy, economic growth, by pushing loads of money into the public sector, squeezing the private sector and pushing money at the public sector. It's a recipe for disaster.
Are this Labour government, a lot of people, are they communists? Do they want no one to earn property? Do they want to take your kids and you know, take them away their education and educate? Is it like...
I wouldn't say they were communists, but it's certainly nanny statism, isn't it?
Aren't they authoritarian? We've got political prisoners.
Yeah, it's government knows best, isn't it?
But we will stamp on you.
We will do government to you, absolutely.
Whatever happened to the hang 'em and flog 'em northern lefties, Labour people? Well, they weren't even lefties, were they? They're called Labour people. But I mean, my mum and dad used to go to Lee East Labour Club, right in the heart of the Lancashire Goldfield. And I'll tell you what, as I've told this story before. Sorry for being repetitious. On a Saturday night, if it was your birthday this week, you had to buy some food for everyone in the club, and you could have 2 types of food: meat and potato pie, or meat and potato pasty. Right? No gender-neutral toilets.
Tough choice, though. I wouldn't know what to pick.
They didn't have a diversity officer. There was no lesbian engagement member of the committee. Any of that sort of thing. But those people have just disappeared.
Yeah, and the transvestites and the others that you would still see around town, and the gay people that would pop in and out, all accepted, all having fun, all enjoying life, no complications or anything like that.
It's all gone the working men's clubs, most of them have.
Oh, that's been terrible, actually.
It's very sad, and they used to have the talent shows and everything. And
it was a heck of a lot easier when life was simple. You know, life was a lot simpler.
And it was much better.
But the point you were making is that which is what I was, traditional right-wing Labour. So tough on benefit claimants, tough on illegal immigration, tough on law and order. All that's gone from Labour. Now you have this North London Labour elite that have a particular perspective on...
but don't you find it, actually, that people are quite surprised to learn that you were former Labour, because it's just such a thing of the past now, isn't it?
That's right. People struggle to relate to it.
The other thing is, there's a lot of snobbery as well, isn't there? Which is kind of, oh, God, he didn't go to university. Well, no, you did, but, you know, in general, that's all. Oh, God. I mean, the reality is, what they want is they want the public sector workers, the NHS managers, GPs and lawyers. That's what the Labour Party is now.
Yeah, totally. There's very few working class Labour MPs in Parliament these days. There's no doubt about that. And so the Labour Party has just been transformed into something that most people, especially in the north of England, cannot relate to at all in reality. They are just totally confused by Keir Starmer taking the knee, the wokeism agenda and all the rest of it.
And that's why they're so politically homeless, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like what they said about Southport. They said, you know, when it came to Black Lives Matter, they took the knee. When it came to gay pride, they painted a flag on the police cars. When it came to concerns about working class white children, they sent in the riot squad.
Yeah, quite rightly. Yeah, no, it's appalling. And I think there'll be more discontent as we come towards the summer again.
No doubt.
I think people are really angry and upset.
And what can we do about the NHS? Is it time for a fundamental reform?
I think so. I don't think it could carry on as it is. It's just not fit for purpose.
But no one will do anything.
Loads of money at it.
It's a sacred cow. They're only in 5 years.
Our listeners,
well, then the alternative is it collapses, though.
Our listeners and viewers, unfortunately, even people like our listeners and viewers, who I think are pretty switched on and pretty intelligent, are nervous that there is a choice. You either have the NHS with all of its bad points, or the treatment is not free at the point of use and people will die on the streets. And even people watching and listening to this now believe that.
But there has to be something that, I mean, there are other examples around the world, whether it's Australia or even France, where the model is more nuanced and sophisticated.
And costs the same,
Germany or even less, absolutely. And what about people who want to go private? Why, it's a bit like education, actually. Why wouldn't you reward them for not using the NHS, giving them a tax break for not using the NHS and letting those that can't afford the health treatment get a
well,
better
again, they're
service?
going to lose money like the winter fuel payments, because now they've got to find the places in the schools and they're not going to get the money. Anyway, the FT, insipid growth. There's the FT. Insipid growth means tax rises are almost inevitable, economists warn. Tepid expansion forecast this year. Business spirit remains jaded. Inflation curbs. Rate cut hopes. I mean, Elon Musk said he's not going to do the gigafactory in Scotland now. And he said you should not be going into business in the UK, which, you know, a lot of people will listen to. Why would you invest here when you know that he's probably going to end up worse here, when you can go to any other country and probably get a better deal?
Zero growth through July, August, September, because the Labour government were talking confidence down in the economy.
And we were the top economy in the G7,
Absolutely,
weren't we?
It's gone in the other direction. Then we've had a disastrous budget, national insurance hikes, which is killing jobs. We're going into 2025. Donald Trump might well put tariffs on British business. That'll be a killer. This is the Financial Times predicting a really bad state of affairs. It's not looking good at all.
We've forgotten one thing, which is, and this was Theresa May's fault, this idea now that judges decide our environmental policy. What is it, Grangemouth? In Scotland, 4% of Scotland's GDP shut down by judges saying that it was not part of the net zero strategy, therefore it had to go. 4% of the Scottish economy, boom, gone. Forget about it.
Madness.
And that's before we even get into North Sea oil.
Exactly right.
You know, when you think of things like this, all I bring to mind is Kwasi Kwarteng shattered the economy, and quite rightly, he fell on his sword, and basically it saw the end of Liz Truss. I feel like Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have shattered the economy, and they're standing fast. They're not going anywhere.
Right, can I just, before we go any further, just refer you, and apologies for those listening, just look at the picture of the Syrian army on the top.
Looks like the SIS.
They look like they're going to be great, don't they? I mean, just to explain, they're dressed like the Islamic State terrorists, aren't they?
Yeah. And it says fresh start for Syria's regime.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I mean, look at them.
The Great Reset.
When the new Syrian government says they're going to be moderates, look at those lads. I reckon, and I'm going to bet you a tenner that none of them would be willing to join their local Lib Dem focus team, right?
Well, I mean, I love that. How could you? I mean, I suppose they are focused. You can only see their eyes. But look, I mean, for me, I would suggest that I love the way that people have said that what's happened in Syria is great news, the end of the Assad regime. Yeah, that might be... You're right, it is a good thing that the Assad regime is over, but please don't be under any delusion.
No.
What has replaced it is not good.
Well, last time they were there, they smashed up Palmyra and decapitated the 82-year-old archaeologist.
By the way, I'm sorry to keep you on the Financial Times, but look at this top, and obviously we can only see the front page at this point of the day, but Badenoch must hurry to fend off reform. How serious is the challenge to the Conservatives from reform?
I was just reading that. I mean, hurry.
She's feeling it, isn't she?
Yeah, hurry is an understatement. I'd really get my skates on.
I mean, she's panicking with that tweet the other day against Nigel Farage. I mean, she's really... Yeah.
I mean, no evidence for what she said, and she still
very
she was wrong.
I checked. I mean, never ever say no. You've not got many members, because everyone will start joining.
Especially Farage, he doesn't. Once he gets his teeth into something, he goes.
But they're now on 165,000.
Yeah. No, Kemi's really struggling. She's not had a great start. She didn't do too bad at Prime Minister's questions. She was finding her feet, but that doesn't cut through much to the general public.
It was all bluster. We had so many hopes when we saw her. I thought, oh, this is the new maybe Thatcher.
I don't think she'll be there till the next general election.
It's all mouth, no trousers, as they say.
But have any of these...
Have they got anyone, really?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I mean, Viscount...
Jacob Rees-Mogg. He's not there.
Jenrick was nearest.
Viscount Monckton said that he believed that the Conservative Party Conservative campaign headquarters had been infiltrated by a foreign power trying to deliberately get bad candidates. Now, I don't know if I believe that.
It does seem like that.
I don't believe that, but it is noticeable, the staggering decline in the quality of members of Parliament.
Absolutely. I've been reading the plot. I've just got round to reading the plot by Nadine Dorries, and if you take any of that into account, it does suggest that there's a core at the centre of the Conservative Party which would be supportive or identified to be supporting Kemi Badenoch, and have put her there and supported getting rid of Boris Johnson and everything else, and that is a recipe for disaster.
Well, like Dominic Cummings said, I mean, he said it's the same with all because it's a uniparty. You get given the script for the cabinet meeting and you mustn't veer off it, and then they've already got the statement for it.
So it's not what the public wants. That's the problem. That's why Reform are going like this in the opinion polls.
But I don't know how any of these political parties can survive. Labour's going to be wiped out. You know, what is it? The Conservatives on 121 MPs. I mean, I remember 1997, 165 was considered an outrageous disaster. And now 121, I think, to have got over 100, the Conservatives did quite well.
Yeah. No, they're in meltdown. I think they're in a... And I think...
And rightfully so for the last 14 years.
Absolutely. And they're still too relaxed about everything. They're not fighting.
I was going to say, but that's the problem. This is what's even more frustrating, is that you look at... I mean, Labour are obviously relishing this as sort of saying, oh, look, the people voted for change. No, they just voted for anything that wasn't Conservative.
Yes, exactly.
But if you have a look at the way the Conservative Party are acting, they're still nonchalant about it. Get on with it, can't you see?
That's because they've always bounced back in the past. And there may be an automatic bounce. But the problem is, they're now the problem the Conservative Party is, they're no longer the predominant brand in conservatism. It's Reform UK that are making all the run. And I'll tell you the other thing, and Phil, I think I stole this off you, but somebody said to me the other day, the thing that Reform have done, which I think is remarkable, is that each MP has done their own thing. Therefore, it feels like they're actually, it's not a one-man band anymore.
Yeah, and they're covering more ground. You take Rupert Law, he's doing a fantastic job as a member of Parliament.
He's amazing, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, what makes you after him?
I just want to say, I'm flattered you think I came up with it. It wasn't me who said that, so I don't want to take credit for something I didn't say.
Credit anyway.
Yeah. Just one final thing before we go to the break, Simon. You ran for reform in the Rochdale by-election. Yeah. Will you run for reform again? Is that your intention?
I'm not sure. I'm undecided at this moment in time.
So just to be clear, I know you're not a particularly coy person. You would do it. It just whether the circumstances are right.
Yeah,
is that basically?
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Okay, well, after the break, we are going to be looking at the iPaper. Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the paper review on Talk with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and indeed our guest co-hosts are Phil Dave and Simon Danchuk. So I think we spotted the iPaper next, haven't we?
Yeah, the old days, Mike Graham. Well, he's finished his croissants. He's on his Quaker oats now. Oh, no, it's Scots porridge. Oh, yeah, of course it would be, because he is Scottish. He'll be on in after this newspaper. Good morning, everyone. Here they are. Millions face bill to install heat pumps in net zero push, so we're all going to be freezing and skint because these things are rubbish. Almost all homes will have to fit a heat pump under plans to change Britain's domestic heating systems and cut emissions, with new gas boilers set to become illegal in the future. I'm thinking of buying a couple and hoarding them. Do you know what I mean? Because they do keep you warm and toasty, don't they? And they won't know if you've got them in.
If they were such a good thing, why wouldn't people just be buying them automatically and installing them?
Well, that's the left way, isn't it? They force people, and so it all fails.
Control. The reality is, the way to deal with a lot of this is to give tax breaks to new home builders, to put in things like, I mean, I always go on, no, it sounds pathetic, but grey water system, so your toilet operates off your old
Never
bath
drink
water.
the grey water.
Yeah, but your toilets operate off your old bath water. There's loads of stuff you can put in. But retrofitting solar panels is a waste of time. Trying to dig up your garden to stick a ground source heat pump in. You know, if you're building the thing from
if you live in an apartment.
Well, people who've had them...
Yeah, I tried that. The neighbour underneath didn't like it very much.
People who have them say they're rubbish, they don't work, they're too slow to heat up, and they don't
you're on PDHC, aren't you?
But yes.
What you talking about,
Yes,
Willis?
absolutely. It's not a drug, it's a heating system.
So where Simon lives, and this slightly gives away, but it's a big area.
Yeah.
Where you live, originally, it was the spare hot water from Battersea Power Station pumped under the river.
Thames to the estates where I live, and it's a district heating system.
Wow.
So I don't pay for my heating or hot water.
PDHU, Pimlico Heating Pimlico District Heating Undertaking.
But Battersea Power Station's a shopping centre now and an Apple shop.
Yeah, so this, I know, we go there, I like it. But so they've stopped that, but nevertheless, the district heating system's still in place.
Yeah, because it doesn't have a boiler.
Shared, don't have a boiler. No,
fantastic.
Well, when on earth are the powers that be going to learn that it's the same with anything when it comes to progression? Let it happen organically. Stop forcing it upon people, because
it's like the electric cars.
I was just about to say, this is exactly why electric cars are not working, is because they're being rammed down our throats. Just stop it. It will happen organically. OK, you might not be able to hit your little tree-hugging targets by 2050, but it doesn't matter.
The car companies won't stop doing. They're shutting their factories for electric cars.
Yeah, but it's about to become effectively a criminal offence. Not quite a criminal offence, but for car companies to not sell as many electric cars as petrol cars.
With that.
So, but the whole thing's ridiculous, because this ludicrous net zero is the law thing.
That's outrageous.
This is outrageous. Energy-efficient devices cost £5,690 on average after government grant of £7,500.
That's 13.
So, I mean, we're all going to still pay for it anyway, because, of course, taxes will go up to fund all this nonsense.
Like we are for cost £1,500.
Yeah. So what you're effectively talking about is you're talking about probably one of the most expensive things we have, not the military, not the NHS, will be these ground source heat pumps.
And apart from anything else, I don't want this. Do you know what I'm saying? So why should I prefer it? If this is some other idiot's idea of what to do with the planet, you go for it. You're not just
Miliband's. He looks deranged, doesn't he? Even worse than when he had
he hasn't got one of these pumps.
Yeah, but the problem,
fundamentalist.
Yeah, but the problem is with the problem is with Ed Miliband. What he's always able to say is, "I didn't come up with this. It was the Conservatives."
Yeah. Give him a bacon sandwich.
That was Carrie Johnson, wasn't it, when Dominic Cummings left? Trump is weaponising New Orleans attack. Well, is he weaponising? He's just saying what he sees, like
that's amazing,
Roy
isn't
Walker.
It's amazing what we were talking about earlier, with a refusal to admit that grooming gangs were related to Pakistanis and Islam.
Same sort of thing,
Once again, how dare you say the New Orleans attack was an Islamic fundamentalist? How dare you do that?
And just one little more thing. Stay inside warning as health agency warns of freezing snow.
I know.
I mean, isn't all snow freezing?
No,
I mean, that's the whole point. It gets freezing, it becomes snow.
Yeah, but as the planet warms up, it's probably getting a bit warmer. Yeah, it's a bit warmer snow now.
Like ready brick.
Yeah.
Travel firms booking 2 holidays every second as we jet off to avoid nasty blast of snow and ice. Just turn your heat pump up.
I'm not going anywhere. That's
I can't afford it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, by the way, do you think this New Year's Eve cancellations all over the world was to do with they were worried about terror attacks? Because I think there was something more. I think ISIS had said, go and do this to all their operators.
But I just wonder, once again, it's a particularly cold winter and the winter fuel payment's gone.
And Labour are going to get crucified over that.
By the way, according to Labour figures, 4,500 excess, 40 pensioners will die tonight. So apologies on behalf of the government for letting you down like that. The Grit escape, so 6 million people will be booked this month as the Met Office Amber Alerts go. That's the Daily Star. I
thought you did the Express, didn't you?
The Telegraph or the Mirror?
Oh, the Telegraph, here we go. Labour blocks grooming gang probe. We talked a bit about this earlier. Labour has blocked an inquiry into Sir Keir Starmer's conduct of head of the Crown Prosecution Service while investigating the Oldham child grooming scandal. Well, there should be a national inquiry. Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, yeah, of course, refused to launch a public inquiry into historical sexual abuse by gangs in Oldham, saying it was for the council to decide whether one was necessary. What are your views, Simon?
No, there should be a national inquiry, no doubt about it. This was abuse on an industrial scale right across the United Kingdom.
Going on?
It's still going on, undoubtedly. And heads should roll. People in public service, instead of being retired early or, pensioned off and all the rest of it, given knighthoods like Sir Peter Fair, they should be able to account.
But is the inquiry... Should the inquiry be into the grooming gangs, or should the inquiry be into the failure to do anything about it? Because, Simon, I've known you a little while. you've never changed your opinions. This came to your attention as Member of Parliament for Rochdale in 2012. It started in Rochdale. And you've always said the same thing, that there's been a systematic failure by the police, that it is racist, that there is something rotten at the heart of a community that's not willing to cooperate. Nobody has ever really listened, and nothing has really changed.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I think a national inquiry with the right terms of reference and really get to
What are your concerns about the terms of reference?
Well, if it's a Labour government and a Labour Prime Minister that set the terms of reference, then they will skew them in a way that the inquiry achieves very little. And I don't think that can be the case. It has to be truly independent. It has to have the powers to insist on people coming before it and giving evidence. And it even has to have powers to make recommendations for prosecution, in my view.
By the way, another story, Clegg quits Meta ahead of Trump presidency. I think he doesn't quite fit the mould now that they're all brown-nosing Trump. So Nick Clegg has announced that he will leave his role at Facebook owner at Meta weeks before Donald Trump returns to power. He was probably told to leave, wasn't he? As Silicon Valley's big tech companies seek to align themselves with the incoming Republican administration, the former Lib Dem leader said that it was the right time to leave. So Nicky spent 7 years at Meta on reported salary of more than £10 million a year. So I don't think he left this of his own volition. I think he's probably...
I thought one thing that he was right on was when he was right on
£10 million a year.
He came up with that idea where there was going to be, instead of moderators banning people for life, the bans were going to be subject to an independent panel, which I thought wasn't a bad idea, actually, because the first thing they did, didn't they unban Tommy Robinson? That was the first thing they ever did.
All I remember is he used to ponce fags off me when we were at talkTV, at Talk Sport as it was back then, on the veranda, so he can bring me a few duty-frees when
the
he comes
veranda
back.
where they banned smoking.
It was the fire escape.
Where's he going to go next is the question. Where will he go from here?
He doesn't need to do anything if he's been on a severance package.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
And she's on good money as well. She's fairly rich. Yeah. I mean, I won't say where his house is, but it's nice.
Is it?
It is nice. Yeah.
Well, it should be for that.
It's not in Pimlico. Begins with a P. But no, he always says that he's always admits that he lives in Putney, but it's a particularly
Oh yeah,
nice
there's any more? We've done them all.
The Mirror.
No, hang on. I just wanted to talk about this.
Got a minute.
There you go.
Thanks, man.
This social care thing. Do we think it's going to work, or are you just sick of changes?
I'm fed up of hearing about just changes, like all of these reforms they're going to bring in. They're not going to bring in reforms. Get on with it. Do it. Stop talking about it.
We've been talking about social care for donkey's years, for every political party.
Anyway, that's it. Mike Graham's next. He's got Quass on. He'll be all down him. He'll be wiping it off in a minute. But yes, so make sure you join him on Talk TV Breakfast. Going to be amazing as usual. So, yeah.
OK, that's... we have lost the early breakfast people. They have gone.
We can say good evening again.
Hey, good evening. We're back in the evening.
Tomorrow's papers.
I want to just know, in the final minutes, Simon, because you're leaving now,
yes.
I just want to know, what is your prediction on these grooming gangs? Because, oh, by the way, thanks so much for coming in especially for this show, because it's about grooming gangs. Obviously, you're one of the UK's leading experts, which is a horrible thing to be, but you are... 30 seconds, what do you predict?
I think they're going to have a national inquiry that looks into this. It's been too significant for far too long. People need to be held to account.
100%.
And still going on.
And I have to say the victims...
And punished appropriately.
The victims are still out there. I would like to see some police and social workers prosecuted. I know that's...
Elon Musk suggests Philip should go to jail.
OK, 03444991000. We're going to be back just in a couple of moments, taking all of your calls. You've got to have some opinions on grooming straight after this.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or Palmer.
but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
I cannot believe I'm telling you this, but on the night that we're talking about grooming gangs, we have about 2 slots available. So please do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. The lines are not completely jammed yet. Believe me, they will be. Look, Asher, Phil Davies still here. Let's just go straight to the calls. I don't see any reason to muck about. Ben is in Guildford. Ben, you're on Talk.
Hi. Yeah, nice to have. Nice to be on, sorry. I'm glad we're talking about the importance of the Scottish Premier League. I think that's the key problem in the world today.
That was the Old Firm derby, wasn't it? What happened?
Yeah, I've no idea, to be honest. I unfortunately didn't watch it. I've been keeping my eye on politics, but it's very, very important.
Of course. Rangers won.
About the American terrorist attack in New Orleans and the attack on Trump's place in Nevada. It's obviously the world has been on a heightened threat level because of mass immigration, but it's been proven now that of the terrorist watch list, of which hundreds of 88,000 officially have come in, they've all come in through the northern border of the US, which means they have money to fly to Canada.
So you think it's ISIS... Because ISIS have said they're going to use these open weak borders to get people into Britain, the UK and the States and all the other places.
And
why
actually,
wouldn't you?
Can we talk realistically about how weak Canada is? Seriously, I mean, look at the state of what's happened to Canada at the moment.
I mean, it's worse than here, isn't it?
It really is shocking what's happened to Canada. You know, this once beautiful country has just been absolutely overrun with people who just want to see the destruction of it.
Liberal country, and that's why this has happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, Ben.
I'll tell you that when your Prime Minister introduced himself as a feminist, you probably have a slight problem in your culture.
Oh, in Canada?
I
see. I was going to say it. You couldn't mean to Keir Starmer. He doesn't know what a woman is.
No, he doesn't know.
No, of course not. But as a feminist, and then start to speak from there, you've got problems. Now, Canada have let in the majority of those on the terrorist watch list. And what were we to think would happen with 88,000 people who are known terrorists in America? Was there never to be an attack? Of course there was.
Well, we've got 40,000 on the watch list, which proportionately is much bigger than 88 in America.
It is actually, yes, and it's another concern. Sorry.
Bless you.
The Trump attack.
Yeah.
The man who did it was not, who has not been proven to be Muslim or converted to Muslim, but the New Orleans attack and the man who initiated the attack in Nevada both trained together.
Did they? Is that the new news coming out? 'Cause they're trying to deny there's a link.
Yeah, they're definitely, and they hide from the same place. Some newspapers today, this evening rather, are suggesting that his issue may have been Ukraine rather than Islam.
Well, it may well have been, but it seems strange to me that these were two guys who came up together, but you know, talked to.
That is too much of a coincidence, isn't it?
I think what's amazing. I mean, I don't want to push back too hard against this because I may well be wrong, but I think what's notable is the FBI originally were very sure there was definitely a connection. Now what they're saying is it may well just be a coincidence, and what they've publicly said is they've announced. See, this is where the difference to the UK police. They've announced that they trained at the same place. They've announced that they hired from the same car company. But they've said so far we don't know that they knew each other.
But they originally, for the New Orleans, said, oh, it's not a terrorist, and then the New Orleans mayor saying it's a terrorist. Obviously, whoever it was a terrorist. He'd rammed a car into people.
But what I don't understand is that where's the benefit? I mean, Ben, I don't know what you think about this, but where do you think the benefit is for actually keeping that information from the public if indeed there is a link? Why wouldn't they admit that?
I don't think there is one. I mean, if you look at the what's being accused of the last 4 years of the FBI administration, you know, they came out and said it wasn't a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Then it was. Then it wasn't connected. Then it was, and you're just like, if I were trusting MI5 to do that job, I'd expect them to tell me when they've worked it out.
They're so fired in a few months when Trump gets in.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah. I mean,
we live in hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think they will.
But they've got enough people. They've got 88,000 people on the terror watch list, unfindable inside the US. I mean, there was never a chance that this wasn't going to happen, and there's not a chance it won't happen in Europe at some point soon. And
well, it already happened.
Wasn't it happening with the Christmas market?
It's been happening for years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a sad fact of too many lax administrations, too many lax policies, and the idea that anyone claiming asylum is due asylum, which has been proven to be 95% or less.
France accept 5%, I think, of the people that declare asylum. We accept about 70, and the rest just get to stay anyway because they've got a cat.
I think it's time that we need to say, your country is safe, it's time to go home. When your country is safe. If you're a refugee, now look, if you're an economic migrant, I would simply do what the Swiss do, which is you can stay here as long as you work here, and when you're not working here anymore, you can return to your country of origin, unless, and what the Swiss do is, you've got to learn Swiss German, which apparently is very hard, but here's the critical thing that I love, and regular viewers and listeners have heard this before. They hold a referendum in your village to decide whether you should get citizenship or not. And people regularly campaign no.
That's a good idea.
They say, like, there was some woman who kept kicking off about, you know, the cows having bells on the noses. She said it was cruel, so people ran a leaflet campaign saying vote no in the referendum on her citizenship, and she lost.
Well, actually, do you know what? I think it actually goes one step better than that. I don't understand why we don't just say this. Why are we not brave enough to say, we don't want this particular individual here for whatever reason, off you go. It doesn't matter. We should be able to say this.
I mean, do you remember in America they had the Reds under the beds and all that in the 40s and 50s because they were worried about basically end up with a Starmer government. So as we've become more liberal, this thing has happened. Well, you know what I mean? This is how we've ended up there.
Venezuelan gang members who have committed murder on American soil, and they're arguing between themselves as to whether they can be removed from the country.
It's like here. Thanks, then, Ben. Cheers, man.
OK, Stephen's in Walsall.
I won't say it's in Poland, because...
It's his worst joke. Ash has done some good ones.
It's a joke.
But that was a bad one.
Makes the other ones look better. Hi, Steve.
Anyway, good evening, lads.
All right.
There is logic there somewhere.
I have mentioned this to you before. I was born in 1947.
Happy birthday.
I'm an old geezer, so I don't say nothing. But I remember when I was growing up in the 50s, what a wonderful country this was to live in.
Well, Walsall was, of course, it was an industrial centre. It was very rich, Walsall, at those times.
It was. My childhood growing up in the 50s and 60s was wonderful.
I bet it was.
And 70s, and compared with what it is now, I'm old enough to make the comparison. A lot of people aren't. So I know what it was like years ago to what it is now. It's a cesspit now, this country, to what it was. And my mother said to me years ago, she said, when you come to vote, it says never vote Labour. I said, why? I said, because they're no good. It says all they'll do is get all your money off you and waste it. Now, I've been under I was under Teflon Tony Blair. He was another one who was that bent he couldn't lie straight in bed. Now we've got this lot here now, and you know, it upsets me to sit and think the way this country's gone to how it was.
Well, it ruined in the 70s, wasn't it, with the Labour and the 3-day week and all that rubbish that finished, that they actually consciously destroyed industry up and down the country.
The thing is, this storm is what Commodus was to the Romans, a nutcase.
Yeah.
You know, and
he's Caligula.
Can we, Steve?
Keep wandering on. Pardon?
Steve, do you think we can save this country?
No. I've mentioned this point before, Andre. We're over the cliff now, and it's just a matter of time before we hit the bottom. It's got to hit the bottom. You can't carry on like this with all this immigration and stuff, which Tony Blair started.
What happens when we hit the bottom? Where's it going then? How does it ever come back, or is that it then? Is it like the end of Empire days?
It was the end of Empire days a long time ago, because I'm old enough to make the comparisons then to now.
What's Walsall like now? I mean, I know it quite well, but it's really changed Walsall, hasn't it? Like, it's unrecognisable.
Walsall is the biggest, well, I won't swear, it's the biggest...
Hellhole. You can swear if you want. Were you going to say... Yeah.
It's a disgrace. It used to be a beautiful town. They all had...
Yeah.
And they've just gone right down the pan. There again, I'll say it again, I am old enough to make the comparisons to how this country was to how it is now.
Yeah. But Steve, do you mind if I make a slight bit of sort of positivity here? Because I completely agree with you, and I actually sort of remember it more from the early 90s. That was more my comparison. And even then, I think in the early 90s, this place wasn't so bad. And actually, even if you look back at some classic television, you know, that even tells you that it wasn't so bad. Particularly classic documentaries, they tell you that it wasn't so bad. So I actually am slightly more optimistic. I do believe there is a way of clawing it back. I believe the way you claw it back is remove the incentive for people who really shouldn't be privileged enough to live in the UK to stay in the UK. And I also believe that if you toughen up on crime and punishment and actually make it fit the crimes that they carry out, I could almost guarantee that this country would flip around 180 like that. We just don't have a government who is strong enough or has got the backbone to do it. But I believe if we do, it could change. I really, really believe that.
I remember, I'm going back years ago now, a girl got murdered in Birmingham. I'll say her name was Stephanie Blair. She got murdered, I thought it was a long, long time ago. And it was big news in all on the front pages of national newspapers, because murders was never heard on in them days.
Exactly.
Not like
well, there was a murder at Bescott Station, wasn't there, of a girl who wouldn't give some guy, immigrant guy at a hotel, biscuits. She ended up getting stabbed to death or something. Do you know about that?
I hate to say this, but it needs a Mussolini or an Hitler in this country to sort this lot out, because
that's probably going a bit too far.
Maybe
we don't need a fascist murderer in gas chambers. You know what I mean? I think that's going a bit.
But actually, just to not defend Steve, but just to explain that, I can understand why people are so frustrated that they want fundamental change. But I keep watching Dr. David Starkey on YouTube, and you know what he says? We don't need change. We just need to go back to what we were doing before. And that's
absolutely. It changed exactly. This is the whole thing, is go back to before Britain became so broken.
Reform what Tony Blair did, basically, is what
it's exactly the same kind of thing. It's the milk float premise, if you think about it, because, you know, this is what people were saying, you know, that we... From a day and age where we had plastic milk bottles that people are buying from the supermarket, and they're saying, oh, it's such a waste of single-use plastic.
I know.
If only we had something that was more green and was more energy efficient. Well, guess what? We used to have reusable milk bottles delivered by an electric vehicle.
Yes.
So we already had it. What
about this? And now, OK, we always used to call it the fizzy drinks, but the fizzy pop man, right? The fizzy pop man, he turned up with his bottles. You picked whatever you wanted. He had everything, by the way. It was good quality stuff. So then you'd give him the old bottles back, 2 pence per bottle or whatever. Now, that's not recycling, because what they weren't doing was melting them down.
Correct.
They were washing the bloody thing.
They were reusing them. Yeah, exactly.
I remember that all in up to the 70s.
By the way, you've started people now. We've got a message from Ty saying Warsaw is a strange place for a talkTV caller to call from. Steve...
Why?
Warsaw. Not Warsaw.
Poland.
No. Steve, do you agree with my plan? Do you think it's time to say to refugees, when your country's safe, you're going home?
Yes. This is what the idea of it all was.
Well, it was refuge. That's like the refuge when it's finished, like the Belgians World War One.
Trying to better themselves. They're coming across in this country on boats, and from God knows where else, they're all men.
Young men looking for a bit of adventure. It's like when we used to go in the 1700s, Byron, on the travelling around Europe. They now all come here.
I mean, it's also worth pointing out, when you're talking about young men causing trouble, it's not because they're Asian, it's not because they're Afghan, it's not because they're from Africa.
No.
You go to any university town and you move in to a street where every house has 5 blokes living in it, and you will discover that ethnicity plays no role in that problem.
I am now looking at a great big picture of my late grandfather from the First World War on his charger horse, and it's original from 1918. My uncles fought in the last war. In the Navy, they got killed. And I sit there sometimes and I think, what on earth's going on? Why did we fight?
I just wonder. I will tell you something. I think if you were to show a documentary of modern Britain to the guys 10 minutes before they were due to board the amphibious vehicles to invade on D-Day, I don't think they'd bother getting on. I don't think they'd get on. If you gave an honest, dispassionate documentary about modern Britain, this is what you're going to run into machine gun fire for, I think they'd all go, you can sod off, I'm not interested.
Well, I don't know where we're going to go under storm. Well, we're going to hit the bottom of the cliff under storm. There's no two ways about it. And I look at my granddaughter, Ardo, as only 10, and I think, what future is in this?
That's the worry, isn't it? Yeah. Where would you go?
I am a genuine British, English, Anglo-Saxon.
Maybe you will be in Poland next time we come.
I am a genuine Englishman. I ain't somebody what's just walked in from the back of beyond and climbing everything under the sun there is to climb.
Warsaw's not that bad.
Oh, yeah, you want to come and live with it?
No, I do know, actually, yeah, it is bad.
But Steve, might I reassure you again, speaking as someone who is the son of an immigrant, not all immigration is bad, it's just it's assimilation.
It's too much, 2 million in 2 years. You're part of the problem, Phil, you see.
There's no assimilation.
So just let me ask you, where your family from?
It's the old cliche, you can only get a pint into a pint glass and win way over the top.
No, to answer that question, so my father's family are from South Africa, but originally came from Belarus, and my mother's side of the family originally came from Poland.
Oh, right, interesting, yeah. I've got a lot from there as well, yeah.
I mean, Belarus a dump, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, that's kind of why they left it.
But a lot of places back then were all right. Thanks, Steve. Nice one, man.
Thank you so much. We're going to go for a break, and then we're going to continue with your calls straight after that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and Phil, you've had a bit of a rough evening, haven't you? When you tried to advance the theory that we needed to stop this whole Black Britain, Asian Britain, Muslim Britain, you tried to make that point, and
I get it.
Everyone crushed you.
No, that's fine, but I'm used to that because actually, what it is, it's radical thinking to a lot of people. But the truth is, it makes actual sense. If people stop for a moment and remember that one of the oldest methods of basically ruling a nation is divide and conquer, right? This is exactly what we're seeing in the UK and actually the Western world in general at the moment, is the way that everyone is being pigeonholed. We keep being told how wonderful multiculturalism is. Well, no, it's not wonderful.
Homogeneousness is wonderful.
Homogeneity.
Homogeneity.
Yeah, let's just be honest about it. You know, multiculturalism is not wonderful. What is quite nice is the fact that most people who have different faiths live in one country and by and large get on.
Multiracial. We all used to get on fine.
There is a quite large faction of society that unfortunately does want to really take advantage of that and play us off against each other, and that's the problem. So what I'm saying is, if people stop dividing, if people stop actually pigeonholing and just sort of saying that we are ultimately all humans, and actually just try and find some common behaviours that we can all agree on, and basically be ruled by the rule of the land.
I'll tell you what I dispute. Look, I have no problem with somebody being Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or Sikh.
Multi-faith.
Whatever. But I don't say the country is a better place because somebody built a synagogue. I don't
believe it is.
I don't believe. Yeah, exactly.
I don't believe it's better or worse.
No, but it brought other people in, it brought Benjamin Disraeli in, it brought other ways of thinking that were advantageous, and business and Rothschild and all that sort of thing.
That's just nice. It's not because they built a synagogue. It's not because they built a mosque. It's just basically because the UK used to be quite a nice place to live.
My point is, I don't have a problem with us being a multi-faith country, but I don't see its particular advantage.
I don't think anyone has a problem with multi-faith. It's multiculturalism.
No, but the point is, I'm still saying, I still don't think even that represents any advantage to us.
It's disadvantage, multiculturalism.
Oh, well, no, I mean multi-faith. I don't think there's any particular advantage to it. I don't think there's any particular disadvantage either. But I don't think when people go, oh, isn't it marvellous that we've got a large Sikh community? I don't think it is.
But that's why multi-faith is not the problem. That's exactly it. That's precisely my point, is that people confuse multiculturalism with multi-faith. This country's been multi-faith for centuries. This is not a recent invention.
But it is Church of England, and it should remain that as
Absolutely.
By the way, I think we need to enact an award which is, oh, you old softy, right? Which is for somebody who's come up with what I think is a brilliant idea. So Ray in Taunton is the person who gets the oh, you old softy award first. He has suggested that migrants to the UK should first prove their loyalty by donning uniform and fighting for Britain and Ukraine. And the ones that come back alive, they're allowed to remain in Britain. Ray, you old softy. You old softy.
The Monster Raving Loony Party says they'll accept any immigrants as long as they're over 85 and bring both their parents.
By the way, I just want to say very quickly.
I am now minister in the Monster Raving Loony.
Oh, yeah, go on.
New Year's honours list, I was on there with Debbie McGee, Roy Wood, and what's his name, the pianist on David Bowie, Rick Wakeman, Lord Potthole.
He's the organist of a Masonic lodge, I attend.
Is it? Not surprised.
OK, so look, I want to just say this about Walsall. There are people in the gallery. There are people in the gallery who are saying it's a bit of a dump and whatever, and we've had callers saying that it is genuinely a dump.
It is, yeah.
OK, but somebody's got in touch. Chalky and Marky Drayton, I think it's a regular texter, says, a bloke told me when he returned home from national service to Warsaw, as he walked down Park Street, and he'd forgotten how nice it was and how proud he was of the town, and he had been all over the world.
Oh, it was fantastic.
I think it's important to bear in mind that when we call these towns dumps and terrible, there are people who remember these places when they were rather nice, when there was a sense of community.
There was industry. The working people there earned a fortune. They worked in factories, car factories, metal factories, everywhere. Also, the Arboretum.
One of the big problems that you have with uncontrolled immigration is that people have no skin in the game. I mean, there used to be a time when if you threw litter on the street, the person on the street would know who you were and tell you off for it. Well, that doesn't happen now. People don't bother looking after their local area because they're not particularly involved in it. It's not a part of their lives.
But don't you think that part of this is that when you've got, years ago, right, if you disrespected an adult, they would be in a position where they could give you a clip round the ear, right? Okay, and the bottom line was that was a short, sharp shock. I'm saying it's a very different situation to being physically abused as a child. No one in their right mind would condone that.
Correct.
But a clip around the ear was a bit, whoa, hang on a second, all right, well, I didn't like that very much, I won't do that again. But because that has been taken away, there is absolutely no respect for elders now, because basically what it's done is it's put the youth on a par with their elders.
Even that's more important because they go, how youth is important than the future. They're seen as more important.
Yeah, it's true. They're almost elevated now, which is revolting. It's absolutely not okay. The bottom line is that if you don't learn from your elders, then unfortunately we're just going to end up with a load of feral. We've kind of got it anyway. We're just going to end up with an entire feral generation.
I think that's right, and I actually think that when kids make mistakes, to drag them through the courts, A, debunks their fear of the police and the court system, but B, gives them a criminal record. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, Paula, I'm sorry we're not getting to calls, but we will get to calls.
Through them now.
We've got one slot available. Paula is in Halifax. Paula, you're on talk.
Good evening, guys. Happy New Year to
And you,
all.
Paula.
How are you both doing?
We're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Phil's here. He's doing all right.
Phil's doing all right.
Don't worry, she said both, so I'm letting talk to you.
Phil's all right as well.
What you got to say, Paula?
I'm actually changing the subject completely. Now, you remember this person, Ash, Dave Medner?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Barry Humphries.
I've just been watching a programme on him.
Was he not what we thought he was?
Yeah, he was what we thought he was. Well, he wasn't a woman.
Les Patterson as well, fantastic character.
Oh, that was
he made me feel hilarious.
Yeah, he's brilliant. A clever man, you know, great writer and actor, bon vivant.
He sat next to Prince Charles and Camilla on the wherever they were.
It was the Royal Variety, wasn't it?
Goes, that was it, the Royal Variety, yeah. And he goes, oh, sorry, I've got to go now, I've got a better seat.
Yeah, that was genius. Absolute genius.
He only died a couple of years ago, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was that it then, Paula?
What?
Paula, what relevance did that have?
That she just watched the programme about Barry Humphries.
I'm trying to run a serious show here. Right. Don't phone me up about transvestites.
Who's your favourite Barry? Give us a ring. Zero Barry Davis. There's Barry...
Barry from EastEnders.
Barry Manilow. Michael Barrymore.
I remember watching Barry... Was it Barry Manilow? Barry Manilow was on the X Factor.
Barry in North Wales. Barry White. There's so many to choose.
Barry
Manilow. Harold Gibb.
Barry Manilow was on the X Factor, and he was like that. He was going, "Oh my God, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen." Like he had that much Botox, his face didn't move.
Was that what it was? His jaw was wide shut or something.
Don't be mean. Don't be mean.
No, don't be mean.
Indeed.
Barry
okay.
Chuckle.
To you. By the way, can I tell you something? We're talking about Barry Chuckle. My favourite story was when a very well-known newspaper said that the Chuckle brothers had fallen out, and they cited the following evidence: that when they go on tour together, they don't share a room and they don't share a dressing room. And Barry Chuckle said, "I'm 60. I don't share a bed with my brother. I haven't done that since I was about 10. Right?
Morgan and Wise did, and Lauren Hardy.
Why on earth?
Maybe that's where the Gallagher brothers have gone wrong.
Yeah, should be sharing beds together.
You think to yourself, oh, the Chuckle brothers are not sharing a room in a hotel. Well, who does that when they're like 40?
Yeah, why would you, yeah.
OK, Paula. Well, so who is your favourite Barry? Why am I even asking this question?
No, it's obviously Barry Humphries.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah. Are we going to break or are we going to Paula?
Barry let's go. But no, my favourite was Barack Obama. No, I think we should go to a break now, and then we can give Janice her due level of time. Back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave. And let's go to the voice messages. Ty has sent about 15, but here is one of them.
The biggest problem with the NHS is that it's a mixed system. So you've got some aspects that are very privatised and you've got some aspects that are very socialised. And because you've got so many overlapping, like NHS trusts, which don't match local government or even regional government borders, you've got a mishmash of services, some of which are private, some of which are public, and there's too much money that gets sort of thrown into it. Like, the NHS is genuinely just like a giant money pit.
Yeah, some of it is good. I mean, I've done a couple of investigations into Moorfields, and it really is good. I mean, it's almost worth having an eye problem. I've been there twice in the last few months.
The problem is the NHS is a brand name. Yeah. Right, some of it's good and some of it is very, very, very bad. I'll tell you what, geriatric care, appalling. Cancer care for children, just beyond world class. Okay.
Is that in every trust, though? I mean, you know.
No. If you've got a specialist cancer and you're 8 years old, they just spend millions, and rightly so. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
But isn't that the whole point, though? Is that I think that we could all agree that there are things that absolutely the NHS shouldn't bat an eyelid as to how much money they're spending on. Of course, they should be spending money on paediatric oncology, you know, like who in their right mind would say otherwise? But my argument would be is that it's because it's a free-for-all. That's what irritates me, is we need to be brave enough to turn around and say, this is what the NHS should be doing, this is what you should be getting on private if you want it.
But also, do you remember that they're not that good with kids? You know, there was kids with epilepsy and they found this sort of very good cure with the cannabis oils or what, and it was really stopping kids...
Why do you know about the cannabis
having fits and actually dying from fits, and they're still prevaricating and trying to...
Yeah, but I mean, then one could argue that's something to do with pharmaceuticals. So
the problem is with cannabis, it's
politics.
It's bad for kids, though, isn't it? Really bad.
Well, no, it was good for stopping the epileptic fits in these kids, and they die when they. Yeah,
but can we just point out that this would be under like medical supervision? It wouldn't.
Of course, I'm talking about it.
By the way, what drugs you give them is the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. I suppose that's still
nice
for the NHS.
They make those biscuits as well, don't they?
Indeed. Shall we go to Tom on the voice messages?
Hi, Ash. Hi, Andre and your two guests. I'd just like to say, on the subject of Sadiq Khan and getting a knighthood, he's a disgusting cretin.
Is that it?
Oh,
is that it?
I was
waiting with a punchline, but I applaud that.
Can I just say... Let's just say of that. No, let's play it again. Come on, let's have another listen.
I missed that.
Come on.
That'd be my text tone.
Hi, Ash. Hi, Andre and your two guests. I'd just like to say, on the subject of Sadiq Khan and getting a knighthood, he's a disgusting cretin.
Hey! Come on, let's get involved. Get involved. Yeah, I have to say, I mean,
and his kids agreed.
It wasn't the most fulsome piece of analysis we've ever heard on Talk. But
it was quite succinct. To be fair,
fair to say we agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's one more flashing on the Panasonic. Let's hit play, Amy.
Hey Ash, it's Luke here from Orpington. Hope you're well. My message is about the fact that, do you remember the petition we had to have a general election? That went off and everyone's talking about it, and they're not talking about it now. Well, the good news is it reached 3 million people. 3,003,000, actually, 13,000. So they met the 3 million mark, which is incredible for a general election. It's been debated on the 6th of January. I'm not hearing anyone talk about it. I haven't heard anyone talk about it for...
What's he talking about?
He's talking about that petition, the online petition to get a general election again. So it obviously passed the, I think it's 100,000 it has to get passed before it's debated in Parliament.
They're debating in a room, aren't they, separate to the chamber.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. It's being debated on the 6th of January. I'll tell you what.
That's Monday.
Yeah, why don't we talk about it tomorrow night? should there be a general election? Because James Whale is still ill. Do you know, it's a pain, actually, because he's on good form.
Well, he's had the flu, so
the problem is his throat's gone a bit funny because of the flu. So it is the flu rather than the cancer, but obviously he's weak. So we'll talk about it tomorrow night. But I'll go on Monday. No, actually, I won't. I'll watch it on BBC Parliament. But I will watch the debate on Monday, and we can comment all about it, because I think it is going to be...
It's not in the chamber, is it? It's going to be in some room next door?
No, probably a Westminster Hall debate, which means it'll be in the large committee room on Westminster Hall. It'll be a good debate.
I don't think it will go to the Commons, I'm afraid, but yeah.
No, but it'll be a good debate. It'll be well turned out. They'll have the grand committee room.
And then it'll be ignored, of course. But, I mean, should there be a mechanism for getting people out? You know, when it's this bad, shouldn't there be some sort of mechanism?
But I hate to tell you, but you say this bad. The awful truth is that's 3 million out of 69 million. That's not a great number who are calling for a general election.
No, I don't mean this bad, but how bad the government is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but... The problem is, I don't support having a general election tomorrow. I'll tell you why. I don't think our political parties are ready. I think the changes... Yeah. I keep saying this. Do you remember...
There'd still be a Tory reform split, wouldn't there?
Do you remember when the Europeans were going, Britain cannot rule itself, cannot run its own affairs? I thought they were making a generic point. They were saying, no, we've been to Westminster, we've met this lot, you literally can't run your own affairs. I think Brexit has exposed the weakness of our political class, how bad our MPs are, how awful.
And that's why they didn't want it. The reason why they didn't want it is because that way it would then mean they'd have to do some blooming work. At least
they'd be exposed.
When it was under European rule, they could turn around and they could say, oh, it's not us, it's Europe.
Exactly right.
Now they actually have to do something for their money.
Exactly right. Janice is in Essex. Janice, you're on talk.
Firstly, I would like to say I'm sorry to hear about James.
Okay.
He's all right. I messaged him today. He's all right. He's just, because of the flu, he's taking a week off. He'll be back next Friday, cateris paribus.
Okay, well, I'm glad about hearing that. What I like to say is, my goodness, what is happening to our country? Is there anybody fit to run it?
Yes, but they're just not in Parliament.
Yeah, they're not in Parliament.
Janice, yes, there is, but they're just not in Parliament. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, what can we do? What can we do?
We have to wait 4.5 years.
To stop this madness that's going on.
Well,
let alone going on. I listened to you earlier that you were saying about what's going on with these young girls.
Yeah.
That's absolutely awful.
Yeah, of course it
and
is.
the government's done nothing.
Yeah. Well, they're refusing to do an inquiry. Jess Phillips, a women's...
who we're getting in this country.
Yeah, you're right, Tories with a sign.
We are in a bloody mess. Who's going to sort it?
And girls are still being raped up and down the country.
I think James, and I think you, I think Andre and Ash, I think you should be sitting there, because...
It would work.
Couldn't do any worse, could we?
No.
Well, I mean,
maybe.
Look, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be honest with you. There has been. I'll be honest with you. It has been suggested to me to run for Parliament by 2 political parties.
You should.
The only problem is the way that the way that Parliament is at the moment. It would be a really bad thing. I think the real problem is the weakness of our political class. But I swear to you, and people may not believe me, what we are doing now together on this show is improving the country, because the more people talk about issues, the more they engage, the better things will be. Janice...
I am.
Sorry, go on. You're going to... Are you going to run?
You.
Are you going to run?
Only you.
Are you going to run?
You guys.
Are you going to run?
I think you two guys need to stand up and stand up for this country.
We're doing that now.
No one else doing it.
We're doing that now. I mean, I genuinely think, if you genuinely believe that the centre of gravity of debate in this country is at the House of Commons, it's not. The reality is, if you look at in the time of Dickens, I hate when people say that, but Charles Dickens, his first job. All right. But when Charles Dickens' first job was writing word for word debates in Parliament, and people would buy newspapers to read word for word debates in Parliament. Nobody does that anymore. Nobody watches BBC Parliament apart from me, and the reason is because the low quality.
And he changed things as well. When you wrote about the poverty in Victorian time, he actually changed things from writing books. Nothing to do with being a politician.
My favourite author.
Okay, great. Well,
But you stand up, fight the fight.
Thanks, Janice.
All right, OK, thank you so much. I mean, I will say one thing that Dan Chuck said when he left the studio. Not all the callers are doing dry January, are they? OK.
Someone's got to keep the economy going.
I think we're going to go to
I do have to say, though,
now, don't we?
If Dickens was so wonderful, how come he hasn't released anything new recently?
Let's go to... my point was, and I think she slightly misunderstood it, I wasn't slagging off Dickens. My point was that in those days, the debates that we're having now used to happen in Parliament, but they don't happen in Parliament now. No. You know, it's ludicrous to suggest that the standard of debate in the House of Commons is the standard
people sometimes in the chamber.
They don't even happen in universities anymore, because if you don't have the same argument, you're out.
Absolutely. Scott is in Sussex. Scott, you're on top.
in Sussex.
Yeah, well, when I worked in the Middle East...
Sorry, Scott, stop. Scott, stop for a second. How did you do that?
My skills.
Go on.
Scott in Sussex.
Yeah,
Where you go?
I used to work in North Africa and in Libya and all over the Middle East.
You forgot the other place.
And we had to do what we were told when we were there. There was no messing about.
That's what a job is.
You know. Yeah, but we didn't. We weren't treated like people.
Well, it's still like that in those countries. You're not allowed to do, what you want in those countries, or you end up in trouble, don't you?
Yeah, but the argument that you hear from people, Scott, very often is, and I remember a taxi driver did this with me once. Look, the reason why you have to respect Islam in a Muslim country and we don't have to respect Christianity in a Christian country is because we're right.
Well, yeah, it's just I don't understand what's going on. It's we respected these people. We had to respect them, and we did.
Yeah, but it's not a two-way street. That is seen as weakness by certain cultures. You expect people that if you give them something and welcome them in, that they're going to like you. They actually dislike you for doing that and hate you for being welcoming. A lot of cultures.
Scott, just let me ask you. I mean, obviously, in Middle Eastern countries, you're not allowed to drink. Did you observe that rule?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Can't have been easy.
No, it wasn't. No, not for a Scotsman, no.
Well, you must have done well. You've moved to Sussex. That's right, but you're very successful.
Did you work in oil and gas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you, a driller?
Yeah. I worked for American companies, yeah.
Oh, you've done all right then, yeah.
Okie dokie. Well, Scott, thank you so much. We're going to go to a break. By the way, 03444991000 is the number to call. We've got a couple of slots available. Back in a mo.
Across the UK on DAB+. on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. Let's go straight to the phones. It's Mark in Carlisle. Mark, you're on Talk.
Hi, Andre. I've just seen you tonight, but before I get to the point, I've just seen you on a train tonight in a bright orange jacket.
Did you?
Yeah, you were on a train, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
In an orange coat?
Jacket.
Well, yeah.
I didn't speak to you.
Like Ali G.
Well, it was red rather than orange. Go get,
lie, that's a bit creepy.
Go get
what
the
was
jacket.
he doing on the train?
More importantly, what were you following him for?
He wasn't following me, he saw me.
No, he was being followed by a woman. That's why I never spoke to him.
Oh, were you?
There was a woman who looked like Pamela Anderson following him, so I just didn't speak to her.
Oh, that was Danielle Nichols.
Okay, so where'd you get the train from?
Carlisle.
East.
Oh.
Was it this red jacket?
Oh.
Can you see it? Can you?
There we go.
It's a cagoule.
It's not a cagoule.
That's very snazzy.
That's new, isn't it? It's nice.
It might
Nice
take
bit
a
of
few. It
schmatter.
might take a few seconds before Mark sees it.
Oh, yeah,
you'll see it.
I bought it for when in 2018 I went on holiday to Switzerland, and I thought I looked.
It's nice. Actually,
To be fair, it is absolutely freezing out, so I feel like
hoodie.
it's justified.
Apparently, if I put the hood up, I look like Kenny from South Park.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. As long as you don't sound like him, he doesn't sound so good on radio.
No. Who was the buxom woman following you then?
There was no woman following.
A buxom woman.
Shut up! Shut up! I'm married. There are no women involved. There were no women.
Not you. I'm an old can of worms now.
Listen. I pulled some bloody bird. Don't worry, darling. No, it was my PA. It was my PA. Don't. What's he done that for?
Andre, rest assured, those years at RADA won't waste.
What's he done that for? There was no woman involved. Right, you just take that back. Don't tell anyone. Just take it back. I was not being pursued by a woman. That's not happened in many years, let's be honest. But I am up for it. If any woman wishes to pursue me,
look, I've got Shakespearean, man, wasn't it? Exit pursued by a bear.
I've got a quality cagoule.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beauty.
Yeah. There we go. Look at that.
So is that it, Mark? You just want to talk about you saw him on the train? I mean, if you saw Andre, give us a ring. What else?
Little straps.
You want to talk about it? It's nice. Immigration, apparently.
No, that's because without being funny, you can do the lining and just make sure it's so. If you've got smaller wrists. There we go.
Let's just go to Jerry and Burton on Trent.
No, Mark wants to tell us something else, don't you?
Are you trying to tell us something, Mark?
Yeah, I was just saying about all this mass immigration, all these certain countries in Europe doing the same thing, and the Democrats in America doing the same thing. No one ever says exactly what it is. The globalists have got an agenda. It's to be straight out of their playbook, to mix us all up, to get rid of borders, to get rid of flags. That's what it is.
The Great Reset.
Mark, when you say globalists, though, who are the globalists and why have they got so much power to be able to achieve it? I'm not saying that I disagree.
It's the WEF and the richest corporations in the world,
isn't it? I don't disagree at all. I absolutely think you're right that there is this nonsense going on trying to make us all
£500,000 a year you have to pay to be a member of the WEF, and all the biggest companies and corporates and richest people are, and they meet and basically decide on what's going to happen with the world. I'm all right. I'm right, yeah.
Do you know what we should do? We should all save up.
You said that without moving your lips.
We should all save up and we should all donate to make... Who should we make? Viscount Moncton a member of the World Economic Forum.
The thing is, they still won't accept you. If they don't like you, they won't even accept your $500,000 a year.
Oh.
Anyway, Mark,
Anyway, Andre, I hope you have a second...
Yeah, Mark, I just want to ask you...
Second what?
What train... Second testicle, I do, don't worry. Mark, I just want to ask you, where did you go from and to on the train? Come on, Mark.
You won't say.
Come on, Mark.
Oh.
You won't
Come on, Mark, be honest.
He's remaining tight-lipped.
Mark, he's not willing to say. Where did you get the train?
He's been in Carlisle.
Because he says he's in Carlisle. I didn't get the bloody train. I didn't get the train from Carlisle, Mark. Come on, Mark.
Were you in Carlisle?
Maybe the globalists.
Were you in Carlisle with a buxom blonde lady?
He's not called Mark and he's not from Carlisle. I reckon he's a blonde bird.
Maybe it's a case that the globalists have intercepted the call and they've cut him off.
Yeah.
Right, Jerry Burton on Trent.
I'll tell you what, this coat's stifling. OK, Jerry...
It must be very warm in here with
Jerry,
he's getting ready to go.
It's crazy. Jerry is in Burton on Trent. Jerry, you're on talk.
Great beer place.
Jess Phillips, John Ashcroft and the Inquiry, what do they have in common?
Go on. You mentioned them all.
Well, John Ashcroft had a problem getting elected, or I should have included what's his name? Because think about it, they were all struggling at the general election.
Yeah, Jess Phillips only won by a few votes to an Islamist contender, so she's worried about next time, and rightfully so, but she should be out on what she's... But that's the thing with certain areas, you're knackered. We've already got 5.
But part of the problem here, Jerry, is that we have pandered to a group of extremists. We've never supported the decent, moderate, ordinary Muslim people. What we do is we pander to the bullies. I think Jess Phillips should say, the people tell me I should lose should get lost.
And then she'll lose.
Yeah, well, you see, when you listen to someone like in my very humble opinion, the wise Steve Bannon,
yes,
he said that our politicians have been gutless.
Yeah.
He said, anyone who is leading that country of yours, he said they start off in the fetal position, and the moment there's any chance of anyone saying xenophobe, transphobia, he said they cave in.
Yeah.
He said, this is why you need decent leadership. And he put his hand firmly in support of good old Nigel. But that man speaks wise words, and I'd strongly recommend people listen to Bill O'Reilly. I don't know if you guys tune in.
I remember Bill O'Reilly years ago. He read out a message on his show that I'd sent in.
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you what he read out on the O'Reilly Factor. He read out, "Dear Bill, please say hello to all the people who'll be protesting in favour of President Bush's visit to London. I'm proud of what Britain and America did in the Middle East." From Andre Walker, Manchester, England. Don't bloviate, that's my job.
Yeah. I mean, what a guy who really forensically pulls things apart. Anyone watching that can't be anything other than impressed. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, one time he was going to come over to the UK, wouldn't he? But he got stopped from doing it.
Oh, did he? Yeah, he's one of those people who speaks very well. I mean, you know, here you've got Ben Habib, Farage, you've got people, the other guy in Reform that's talking about the immigration.
Over at Pillow.
And the chief, the MD of it, or whatever, they're very good speakers.
2 votes ties.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, these are great speakers and very eloquent and clear, not like most politicians now.
Do you think Ben should be the leader of the party?
Well, I'd have to have a fight between Nigel and Ben.
I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I think about Ben Habib and Nigel Farage. I really think for the good of the country they should sort it out.
Yeah.
They should, but they're too similar.
That's the thing, Reform, that all 5 of them are very different and they're too similar, but there definitely should be a part for him to play.
I'll tell you what I'd have done personally.
In a by-election.
I don't disagree with all your senior people needing to be in the House of Commons, so I understand why they moved Tyson to being a deputy, but you can have 2 deputies. And I think it was a mistake to lose Habib. Mind you,
Definitely.
I also think it was a mistake for Farage and Tice to never listen at all to any of what the Tommy Robinson supporters are saying. I think they
apparently that's changing now.
I think they have got points. And look, I've always said these are not our people in the sense that I don't enjoy street protests. I don't go on them, but I think we should listen to them nonetheless. I think they've got some points.
And they're not far right. No. There might be some there, but they're very few.
I mean, there is an argument to be had that says that there will be people who use those marches who are
and there will be
left.
I mean, there's
but it's exactly the same way that when you have the pro-Hamas marches, that you've got people who are terrorist sympathisers who sneak
of course you have. But at the Southport riots, they say they were left-wing agitators to cause this. It was all scripted to get this to that.
All right, Jerry, thank you so much. That's Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. Andreas, somebody said, Ty said, I'm the trendsetter, and I've got a legion of adoring fans. Neither of those are true. Jackie is in London. Jackie, you're on Talk.
Hi, Jack.
Good evening. I would like to say
look, there's the cleaning lady. Let's give the cleaning lady a wave. Hello, cleaning lady. Hello, hello, hello. You're being waved at live on the telly. There we go.
She's quite rightly looking at you as if you've gone bonkers.
She's not the usual lady, actually. Well, the usual.
Then again, having said that, I'd imagine it's a look you're used to.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, Jackie, we completely ignored you there. Go for it.
That's okay. I'd like to say I've just watched a interview with a lady called Maggie Oliver, who works for Rochdale.
We've had her on quite a few times, Maggie. Yeah, she's brilliant.
Well, she she just got shut down, didn't she?
Earlier in the show, the former MP for Rochdale, Simon Danchuk, called for her to be the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester to sort the problem out.
Well, I suggested, actually, because what the thing is, they drove her out with Greater Manchester Police, and she should be put back in now that Burnham is the sort of head of the police there. And she should be head of the child grooming gang. She's done this for 20 years, and she knows it, as she says, inside out.
Exactly. And
but they won't, will they?
Well, no, because this is going to be another Southport scenario where this is going to wind people up, and this is what they're up to.
Well, they're covering up
on the streets. This is what they want.
But don't you think, Jackie, that actually people like Maggie Oliver can do more good?
Yes.
You know, that's not very good English.
By not being in the tent.
But actually by not being in that political elite, and actually by doing the whistleblowing and by shouting about it and saying, look, everyone, this is what's going on. If you don't realise it, I do know because I've been there, I've seen it for myself. This is...
But the thing is, if she wasn't, she wouldn't stand for any crap. She'd actually do what was needed, which is why they'll never put her in there.
Until they boost her out.
Jackie, thank you so much. Jackie, thank you so much. But we had loads and loads and loads of calls. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to get Lowry in Rainford on. Lowry, you've got about a minute.
Nigel Farage said too much too early, made himself unpopular, but now he's got confidence, he's got more eloquence, etc. That man could go far, especially if he had Ben Habib as his deputy.
Can I ask you, Lowry, what is it about Ben Habib that is so important?
He speaks clearly, succinctly, and he's quite sexy in a mature way.
He is very sexy, and he's got, like you say, his clarity of thought and eloquence, the way he can put things across simply, but very, cogently.
And Lowry, let me tell you, he's a true gent as well. He really is.
And, he's British, he's got Pakistani heritage, so he's got all bases, he's
got all bases covered.
Well, a lot of bases.
I love that. That's the worst thing you've ever said.
Boris was Jewish, Muslim, American, Turkish, he was everything.
Lowry, don't worry.
He's a mixture.
He's a right-winger, but he's a Pakistani, so he's got it all covered. He's got it.
All bases covered.